Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees special meeting. Today is January 27th, and I'm calling our meeting to order at 6:31. We have 5 trustees present here in person at the Ross Valley School District at 100 Shaw Drive in San Anselmo. We have myself, Rachel Litwack. We have Chris Lindles-Cobb, Daniel Cassidy, Shelley Hamilton, and Anna Marsh. We also have cabinet members present: Superintendent Tyler Graff, CBO Chris Carson, Assistant Superintendent Julia Walcott, and Director of Student Services Lori O'Connor. Our meeting is being live streamed via YouTube. The link is on our website and on the agenda. There will be a 60-second delay between the meeting and the YouTube live stream. A recording of the meeting will be made available to the public on our district YouTube website. Per the Brown Act, for special meetings like this one, public comment is allowed only on the item that has been described in the notice of the meeting and may be made in person at the location of the meeting. If you would like to make a comment tonight, we would love to hear from you. Please fill out one of these blue comment cards just so we can get an idea of timing and make sure we can time everything so everyone has a chance to speak. And with that, I will move on to the next item on our agenda. It's a procedure item, and we have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would like to join me, please stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item is to adopt the agenda and time allocations as stated here. Did anybody have any questions on that? Changes, modifications? No. Okay. If we don't have anything there, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt our agenda as stated.
Okay.
I will second.
Thank you. And Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
And Anna?
Aye.
Rachel? And Rachel, aye. Okay, so we have an agenda. Next item is to C, communication. We have correspondence communication to the board. So I hope everyone had a chance to look through that on the agenda. Great. Okay. And then we have item 2, which is announcements by labor unions, CSEA and RVTA. Do we have anyone here from those 2 organizations who'd like to speak? Yeah. All right, yes, come on in.
I'm Deanna Subtitles, co-president of RVTA.
Erica Stieg, Vice President, RVTA.
We just want to, on behalf of RVTA, we want to express our appreciation to all of you for the many months that have preceded this day. We've always been invited to participate in the brainstorming, the researching, the decision-making, the budget advisory, and it feels very collaborative, and we appreciate that. We're very well aware now of the revenue challenges the district faces and of the potential cuts on the line to our essential programs like counseling and reading intervention. And we learned a lot last year from Measure E campaign, and we hope to see a measure on the ballot in June of this year. We're ready to mobilize our membership to get a parcel tax renewal with an increase to maintain the effective educational programs we currently have in our district and to pay our dedicated staff members a living wage comparable to our neighboring Marin County districts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From CSEA, is that you done? Okay. So with that, we will move on to D, presentation and action items. The first one here is the recommended acceptance of the budget reductions planned to be implemented on a 3-year timeline. Is this Chris or Tyler?
It's me.
Okay.
All right, so just a little bit of context here. The reason we're coming to you all with a budget reductions plan is because the MCUE basically at budget adoption and at second interim gave us a letter saying, listen, we'll approve the budget, you're positive, but your deficit spending at an unsustainable rate, and you have to have a budget reductions plan and a reserve maintenance plan. So part of that is what this is. So we came to you a couple meetings ago with just kind of a long list to kind of pull from in the event we had to make cuts. The board direction that you all gave us was that long list is nice and we can kind of pick and choose from that when we're ready, but we want something more specific. So we went back to the budget advisory committee and came up with something more specific. I want to thank Chris Carson for leading the budget advisory committee and any members in the room that are part of the budget advisory committee meeting just for kind of re-digging into this over and over again. I feel like the committee has done some really nice work. So if you're in the room, can you raise your hand if you're on the budget advisory committee? So we've got a handful of folks in the room. So we've got two things for you. We have a tiered budget cut list here, and then I have a timeline that I'll share after this. So if in June a parcel tax renewal and increase is unsuccessful, the plan that we have is tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 we would implement immediately and on August 1st. None of these cuts require a March 15th reduction. They're a little bit easier, quote unquote, easier to reduce. None of those are easy reductions, but they don't require the March 15th deadline there. So you can kind of see the list there. And then we would have to start planning in September for reductions for the 27-28 school year. And those reductions would be more significant and would include layoffs. So eliminating the second elective at White Hill, an instructional coach, our district English language development coordination, certificated PE at the elementary school level, which would require some negotiation, our special education coordination, which is super supportive, and then a 3-day management furlough was brought up into that tier 2 as well. So all told, that's about $1.2 million of cuts done in early August of next school year, and then it would kind of be in August of the 27-28 school year. But some of those cuts in tier 2 require about a year of planning to implement. So that's kind of the specifics there. Then, if in November we went back out for another parcel tax and that parcel tax renewal and or increase was unsuccessful, then we would have to take $5 million out of our $30 million budget and make significant cuts. We would close 2 elementary schools or reconfigure our schools. That would save us about $1 million. And what that would look like in practice is closing 2 of our elementary schools, moving those students and teachers to the other 2 elementary schools and adding portables onto those buildings. And or one option we looked at is actually putting all 5th graders at White Hill. So our elementary schools would be kindergarten through 4th or TK through 4th grade, and then middle school would be 5th through 8th grade. A lot of that kind of initial planning is just based on the capacity of our school sites and the enrollment that we currently have. We'd have to go into a lot more detail and planning for that to actually make a specific recommendation. Would also eliminate all those other things to the tune of about $3 million, and would still be running a structural deficit of about $2 million. So without the parcel tax at all, we have to make all of those cuts, and we're $2 million in the hole, which means we're on our way to state receivership pretty quickly after the November parcel tax isn't passed. So that's just kind of the budget reductions. Any quick questions from the board just on the reductions right now?
Do any of these reductions have the potential to expose us to lawsuits?
Well, I would make the argument that some of the tier 1 and tier 2 cuts end up getting in that direction. I think initially in the tier 2, the special education coordination, we need to spend more in special education to help be more well-planned. I mean, the presentation that Lori gave last week was really good, highlighting that. And I think the less we spend, the more of a skeleton crew we have there, the higher chances that we make a mistake and we're exposed to litigation.
And if that litigation occurs, that punctures the $2 million projection that we're hoping to rely on.
Yep.
To continue at that budget.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Shelley?
In the assumption around the school closures, does that reduction include the cost of additional portables? Like, is
Yeah.
it, okay, so it
Yeah,
does
so Chris and I
include
went a
assumptions
lot
around
more
that.
detailed about, eliminating a school means one less principal, one less executive or assistant, front office admin, custodian. You might save a teacher just because you're having larger schools. And then some power savings, some water savings, but then some increase in security and portables. So
Okay.
all told, we thought that closing the school nets about 600,000. So it's like it's not a ton of money to close a school, and it's very disruptive. But so is cutting programs to students, right? That diminishes the quality of our programs.
Just to clarify, so there's, with closing the school, that is not decided, you're not asking us to approve specifics at all.
No,
Okay.
if you approve this plan tonight, we still have to come back to you to actually approve the cuts later.
Yeah.
This is just saying we can submit this to tell MCOE that we have a budget reductions plan in the event that something doesn't happen here, where we're able to increase our revenues. And once we get closer to, I guess, the end of the year, maybe at budget adoption, we would be, just like we did last year, asking you to approve the budget in June with the tier 1 and tier 2 cuts baked into that budget.
And are these numbers absolute or do they fluctuate?
There may be some slight fluctuation, but these are pretty good ballpark numbers.
And the tier 2 reductions, if the parcel tax in June is not approved with an increase, we would go back out for another parcel tax in November, potentially just a flat rate.
You could do a flat rate
Right.
or a lesser increase or the same, or
But
it
if
could be
the-
citizens
if the-
initiative.
If the increase is not approved, tier 2 reductions are gonna happen no matter what.
Mhm.
Even if in November, if we just go back out for the same flat rate, we still have to
Yeah.
utilize tier 2 reductions.
A straight renewal still has tier 1 and tier 2 cuts. Whether the straight renewal happens in June or November or after that. And the assumption baked into that is continued 0% raises.
Up to this point, has the county given any advice on what to cut?
No, the county won't give us advice on what to cut, they will just give us direction to cut.
Got it.
We actually we've both met with John Carroll and the, I guess it's assistant soup of business services over there, and they're confident in the plan that we have. They're confident in the leadership between Chris and I that we'll weather this storm and that this plan will get us to where we need to be. They're nervous about the, state takeover piece, but I'll talk a little bit about that here in the timeline. Yeah, Shelley.
So I know it's really teeny, it's almost like the smallest thing on the page is the
Yeah.
most important thing to me on the
Yeah.
page, like, for me, I'm like, that should be like big font and red. Because one of the things that I think about in approving a plan is that your plan works. It gets you out of what you need to get out of.
Yes.
And when I read the small type at the bottom, it's telling me, even with $3 million, you're still not getting out of what you need to be getting out of.
Yeah, this is almost 4.5 when you total everything up. It's almost $4.5 million of cuts. If you made every single one of those cuts, we're still structurally deficient in our budget. So the core of the issue really is at the state level or at the local revenue, right? We've got two options. We can advocate at the state level, which I know all of us are already doing. We're calling our senators, we're sending letters, we're meeting with other superintendents to advocate for changes at the state level. I'm fully committed to that, and I'm also realistic that I'm a single superintendent of a school district of 1,700 kids. My influence at the state level is not that of Oakland or San Diego or LA or San Francisco. who actually have like people on staff to advocate for at the state level. So that process may take 3 to 5 years and may not happen at all. By that time, we've been taken over by the state. So I'm fully committed to advocacy at the state level. I'd encourage everyone in the room to advocate at the state level because that is part of the core of the issue. What we can control more easily is working with our community to find a solution here locally to increase revenue. So that's it's to your point, this plan without local revenue or without a shift to the LCFF calculation at the state level this plan does not work.
Still, so even
But there's nothing else to cut after this either.
right, so that's what my takeaway from the small type is we could go through an exercise of cutting $3 million and closing schools and all of the pain and heartache that involves. And we will still go into receivership because we're basically saying as a district, we can't operate with $5 million. I mean, there's just nothing left to cut and still be a viable operating.
The only other thing you could really cut is do salary rollbacks to fill that gap. And we're already the lowest paid school district. We just gave 0% raise. We're losing ground to other districts. And to do a 10% salary rollback, I mean, I would be surprised if any of our teachers stayed at that point.
So, I mean, I'll let you go on to the timeline part of it, because part of what I was thinking about in terms of timeline of deciding if the parcel tax didn't pass and we went out and then we have to be looking at these seriously, is at what point does MCOE step in and say, yeah, 3 million is great, still doesn't get you there, so we're not gonna, like, we're gonna move into it. So I'll let you go into the timeline because I think part of it has to do with that timeline, but I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something with the small type at the bottom there. And did the budget advisory committee have anything other than that there's not, I mean, this is what we can do. We can't get.
And this is everything we brought to the budget advisory committee. And the things that the budget advisory suggested we add to the list. So this is like our administrative team, our union partners, our budget advisory committee, all putting our heads together and saying like, what are the things we could cut? You still need it for every 25 kids, you need a teacher. Right? You can't cut that. So really, when you get to the end of this plan, the next step is salary rollbacks, and at that point, you know. Okay, take a look at the timeline here. So I want to give Teresa Machado credit for putting this together. I had like a handwritten piece of paper with all of this on there, and Teresa turned it into this, so thank you, Teresa. So here we are at the top left-hand corner in the green, talking tonight, approving a budget cut plan and having our initial discussion around parcel tax for 2026. Could be June, could be November, that's up to you. Potentially, it's up to you really on February 11th where you'll make the vote. You'll give us some direction tonight. If you decided to go with June, on March 6th, we would actually make sure that gets to the county of Marin, so it gets on the ballot. Election day would be June 2nd, and then there'd be an inflection point. Either we got a yes vote and we make a budget adjustments, we negotiate with our union partners, and we stop the budget reductions plan, or if you choose November or there's a no vote, we keep moving down the path. In June, we would come to you at budget adoption with a qualified status budget, meaning we have negative reserves in the third year out. We haven't had a qualified budget in a long, long time, maybe ever. That would be a serious warning sign to the county office that we're having very significant problems. That's, a few months out. And then we would start in July of 2026. We would need to have board discussion right away about the structure, scope, and timing of another parcel tax in November. In August 1st, we would implement the Tier 1 budget cuts. On August 7th, we would submit a ballot measure to the County of Marin. In September, we would start our planning for our Tier 2 budget cuts and start contracting with a school closures consultant who would walk us through the school closures process. That's in September. That's less than a year out. And then November 3rd would be election day. If there was a yes vote, we would finalize the tier 2 cuts, so we would move forward with tier 1 and tier 2 cuts, but we would stop the tier 3 cuts. If it was a no vote, we would start planning for the tier 3 cuts, which would be much more significant. We'd already have that school closures consultant on board and ready for us. And we would come to you at the end of next school year at budget adoption with a negative status budget, meaning we have negative reserves in the second year out. You know, mid-June of this year, that's like a warning sign, and now it's like flashing red lights to the county office. So then when you move down into the 27-28 school year, which really is like a year and a half out, it's not that far out, we would finalize our school closure plans in that school year, and the process for state receivership would likely start in that school year. And then we would start the 28-29 school year with 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and likely in state receivership. So that's kind of to your point, Shelley, that even with the plan, we're still in state receivership. We only have 2 elementary schools, and those elementary schools would be at max capacity plus. There wouldn't be room to move in those schools. They would be elementary schools of about 500, and our capacity is right about 425 for our buildings. So that's the timeline of things to happen with all the scenarios in there. Questions on the timeline?
Can you explain a little bit more about state receivership?
Yeah, so at state receivership, I think probably in June of 27, when we go with a negative status budget to you, at that point, the county would start having some pretty serious conversations. And state receivership essentially means that Chris is pushed out of his job, I'm pushed out of my job, and you all don't have real voting power anymore. So someone from the state is kind of put in to direct us how to move. There'd be an interim superintendent and an interim CBO that would, lead that process, that would be basically directly tied to the state and their decision-making process. And they would likely come in and start making deeper cuts. And like I said, the only deeper cut is salary rollbacks.
They don't come in with backfill your money.
Mm-mm. No.
But you basically lose all local control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you know anything about Fairfax and San Anselmo, local control is pretty important. So losing that would be a serious problem.
Okay.
I think this is an important visual for folks just to sit with for a moment. It's a lot of words and it's a lot of dots and there's a lot of years on it. But June is in my experience, the spring goes by at 1,000,000 miles an hour. We're going to be coming to you with budget adoption in June before you know it. And then it's a school year and it's off to the races with state receivership and closing schools. So it seems like it's a long way out, 28, 29, but that process truly starts in earnest in September and for real in November of next school year, less than a year away.
And because of the timeline, like you said, for the tier 2 cuts, unlike the tier 1 cuts, which don't take as much lead time, the tier 2 and the tier 3 take a lot more lead time.
That's right.
And so unfortunately, timing wise, it looks like you have to start putting things in place before the election happens.
Yeah.
Because of the time frame.
Yeah.
I was noticing that
And that-
September versus you don't know until November, but because of what you have to do, you have to start.
Yeah. So we almost, and this is kind of the challenge that we're in, we kind of have to have a plan A and a plan B. And this is a plan A and plan B, and then after June, there's another plan A and a plan B, and after November, there's another plan A and plan B. And this is what businesses do in terms of strategic planning and, mitigating risk, having a plan with all the options on the table. So if you don't have any more questions about either the cuts or the timeline.
I just had one more, just to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually in the next agenda item, but the information, so right now, with our current revenue situation, about 16% of our budget is parcel tax.
That's right.
It's about $5 million.
That's right.
So basically, the way I'm hearing that is that if we had no local funding, we just had the state allocated LCFF, so when you're talking about a structural issue.
Yeah.
The structural issue, just making sure I understand this when we go through the structural issue, is that the state says, oh, all the districts can run at this guaranteed minimum amount of money to create an education for the kids, public education. So what the state is telling us is that you get, according to the state funding, $5 million less than what you're bringing in locally. And what we're looking at here with these cuts is what would that look like structurally in our district with $5 million less? Because basically the cuts on the other one were 3 million, and then for something almost 5. So it's kind of like this.
The LCFF, basically we get what the creators of the LCFF thought was the base minimum any school district could have per pupil. We get that, essentially, give or take like a little bit of money. That might be sufficient if you're on the North Coast or maybe parts of the Central Valley, the Eastern Sierra, but in the Bay Area, that we would have to offer salaries that are 10 to 15% less than we offer. That might work if you're living in a rural area of the state where cost of living is much cheaper and you can kind of afford to own a house in your school district. But in Marin County, it does not cut it. So the LCFF, this is why some people at the state level are advocating for a regional cost of living adjustment to the LCFF, which would benefit districts like us in Marin or in San Mateo or in Santa Clara County. Those are the things we're advocating for at the state level. Like I talked about the last board meeting, there's also conversation at the state level between doing enrollment-based funding as opposed to attendance-based funding. Unfortunately, I think that one is a little bit dead on arrival, but that would be something that would give us a 3% increase to our LCFF calculation right off the bat, which is about $3 million, or I don't know what 3% off the top of my head is, but.
And the other conundrum that we have is that we're in a high cost county, but we're also in a high property tax county. But we are surrounded by other school districts who are their property tax base actually has excess over their LCFF minimum. So the amount of money that our neighboring districts have is higher than what we have.
Yeah.
And so then when that's another
And I
element.
think that's something I've been thinking a lot about in the last week or two is just the property tax in Marin County is high on the dollar amount. If you look nationally, it's not high on the percentage compared to the home value, but home values are really high. So even with a lower percentage, your actual raw number of tax is pretty high. And I think it's very different if you bought your house in the last 5 years, the property tax bill you have, versus the property tax bill you might have if you bought 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And the story of the Ross Valley is that the average home across the average of the homes is actually a lower property tax than surrounding areas, because we have more folks that have lived in their homes or inherited their homes that have a property tax basis from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I think that's part of the story here, where there's higher turnover in San Rafael, there's higher turnover in Mill Valley and some of these other places in the county. And what that tells me is people want to live here and want to stay here because it's a great place to live, because their schools and teachers are so amazing. Like, that's part of why housing turnover isn't as high as it is in other places.
Any more questions? Excuse me. No? All right. I'm gonna turn it over for public comment. I think these are all for the next agenda item. If anybody has any public comment on this, please feel free to step forward. You have 3 minutes. Is our timer working, Teresa? Or is our timer working?
I think so.
Hi, thanks. PJ Pfeffer, Manor Parent. So I brought up, and I won't restate my email, I know you've read it word for I won't restate it word for word. I am hoping the board will consider adjusting the budget reductions tiers. The part of the preface of the most recent budget advisory committee meeting, and I've been to all of them, was a discussion about how disruptive school closures would be and why that's our last resort. And I thought that sounded odd. I grew up in New York City, so for many reasons, schools closed temporarily or permanently with some regularity. And there was never any sort of discussion about all of those students suffering severely as opposed to all the other things that students in New York City struggle with in terms of school facilities and funding and the like. So I went and did some research and saw that there is research on the effect of school closures on student populations, and especially, they're more severe in populations that are typically underserved, minority district, lower income communities, places where when you close the school, all of a sudden people's commute times goes from 15 to 20 minutes to an hour. Even then you get like maybe a 2% reduction in college attendance. And by the time you're like 26 or something, this study said that you'll have made $8,000 less. But it also found that there really is no long-term negative effect on student outcomes in more well-resourced districts and communities. And contrary to that, arts education, student counseling, mental health counseling, intervention, these things do, and we've seen in our district, have a significant effect on student outcomes. And right now, the district could push some of the school closings up to tier 2 and move down some of those special education things. To Trustee Landell-Cobb's point about lawsuits mitigating some of these cost reductions, you also have to think about the increased cost due to attrition if you get rid of certificated PE, or special education costs increasing because we lose our counseling and our instructional coaches and things like that. Thanks.
Hi there. Pascal Sisich, district voter. And first I want to thank you for being on the board and providing community service. It's a terrible job. I'm glad you're doing it. And also I want to thank Tyler for being so gracious and really a real good person to talk to. I've been opposed generally to most taxes. I was opposed to Measure E, and Tyler and I had a conversation about this, and I totally appreciate teachers and parents and the needs for the schools, but my perspective is someone who doesn't have kids, has been paying school taxes forever, and most importantly, I'm scared I'm going to have to move. And you're not the only tax out there. I think you mentioned we had the lowest. I understood the tax-based conversation is probably based on the 1% ad valorem state tax. I have 18 separate items on my tax bill. And when I go to pay that every year, I did a spreadsheet. I encourage everybody to do one. If you own property in the Ross Valley, put it out 20 years. I'm gone. I'm gone at year 10. And so I speak from a perspective of affordability. And if you don't think it impacts renters and teachers' ability to buy and rent in their district, every time you increase the tax, it's making it harder and harder. Having said that, I'm sympathetic to the problems you might be having. I really appreciate the tier 1, tier 2, whatever. I didn't hear all of that conversation. I think you need to double down on that. And frankly, I don't know if you mentioned this. I brought it up with Tyler one day. You need to sell this building. Why do you need this property? I mean, come on, you're a small 4 or 5 district school district. Why do you need facilities like this? So I would encourage you to do that. And then finally, I'd say, when Measure E failed, people who had homes that were, I think, 1,200 square feet or about that were, is that my time? No. Yeah. Get out of here. My tax was going to be less with Measure E, but now it would be more. And so to me, it sounds like a car deal, right? Where you go in, and Tyler and I talked about this. You go in and somebody wants $1,000 for your car, and you say, I'll give you $700, and they come back and say, well, how about $1,200? And so I know you think you need this money, and maybe you do, but the taxpayer and the voter in this district is going to look at that and go, they didn't get the message. And so, except for the larger properties, which I guess would pay less, but there's going to be something like 10 new tax measures in the county between June and November. I'll stop there because my time's up. But anyway, thanks for listening.
Hello, members of the board. I'm Michelle Pelton. I'm school counselor at White Hill Middle School. And a couple things, I think just looking at the tier proposal already is putting fear in the staffing and already feeling consternation amongst everybody who sees these reductions. I also feel like we're talking about Prop 13 here. Prop 13, from a personal perspective, the business that my family had run went from $2,500 to pay each year up to $25,000. So if you are somebody who is retiring or older, you do pay less in taxes. And also there will be tax breaks for people who are seniors and who have hardships. But I'm really here to talk about receivership. And I was in a district, and when I first started out as a school counselor 24 years ago, anyways, I was at Vallejo City Unified School District, and they went into receivership about 5 years in. Those scars are still there. They don't go away. Anytime you hear about a school district going into receivership, they're still, at this time, trying to fight their way out of it. It's not something you want to be in. When a district loses financial control, the impact reaches far beyond the budget spreadsheet. Decisions quickly shift away from what is best for the students in the community and toward what is required to stabilize finances as fast as possible. As a result, staffing programs and services are cut rapidly with little opportunity for thoughtful or strategic planning. Just looking here. The loss of stability affects everyone in the system. In my experience, staff turnover increased, remaining employees carried unsustainable workloads, and many of the programs that define the district were eliminated. Once trust, morale, and stability are lost, rebuilding them takes years. The greatest cost, however, is to the students. Supports are reduced, enrichment opportunities disappear, and the schools move into a survival mode rather than a place of growth and possibility. Families feel the shift, and community confidence declines alongside the district's reputation. This affects everyone, including the community and the stakeholders, and if you're running a business here, it's going to affect you too. This parcel tax represents an opportunity to protect local control, preserve essential services, and safeguard the long-term health of the district. The cost of acting now is far less than the lasting consequences of being forced into receivership. And I want to thank you for your time and letting me speak. Appreciate it. Thank you.
One thing I'm going to ask is for no applause, because there's people who are have different views on everything, and I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable speaking publicly, because everyone should be able to speak publicly here. So I'm just please request that you not clap, or just out of respect for everybody here who may have different opinions. Do we have any other public comments?
My name is Ben Lucchese. I'm a father of a 4th grader and a 2nd grader. I'm also a former teacher who walked away from the profession due to the realities of living in the Bay Area and the income that I was making. My first point is that this is a family community. The overall flourishing of this community relies heavily in many ways on confidence in its school systems. And that relies on both the size of classes as well as the quality of our teachers. We moved here to San Anselmo in 2022, and one of the first things we looked at on Trulia was that 1 to 10 number next to the schools in the area. And I know for a fact that many other families would be doing that. We actually moved from Greenbrae, where my daughter was at Basic, and it was pretty amazing to get to a school that only had 2 classrooms per grade versus the 4 that they had there. I've heard that some years they actually have 5 kindergartens, which to me is a wild number. We have something special here. It's an amazing community that we live in. But I do understand that there are those that don't have kids or whose kids have already gone through the school system. And what I'd like to say to you is that as the quality of our schools drop, the desirability of the area will as well. Property values may not dip too drastically. San Anselmo and Fairfax will continue to be nice communities, but they certainly won't increase in the manner that they have over the last several decades. The parcel tax for those affected should be looked at as an investment in your community, but also, just in a callous manner, just as your estate's value. Allowing our schools to suffer will likely restrict your estate's future potential, but more importantly, it's going to impact in a negative fashion the desirability of our community, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I saw somebody I thought needed to comment.
Good evening, trustees. And I'm going to probably sound similar to the gentleman before me. This feels like a death spiral. It feels like as the quality of the school deteriorates, then people who have the ability to will pull their kids out of the school and move, put them in public schools, and then the quality of the programs will continue to deteriorate, and the teachers will become demoralized. We heard about state receivership. I am probably not sharing anything new. I have 2 kids that are just about to join, so I'm a prospective parent. And the biggest thing that I would ask is and there's so much canvassing by Tyler, by so many people in this room, and just it's shocking to me how few people know how desperate this situation is. And so while we can focus on a lot of different things and how much more we can cut, I think if we can spend some time thinking about how we can make this more pervasive, and you tell a working parent that you're going to have a half-day kindergarten program, and they're probably going to show up and try to figure out what they can do too. So I just want to say thank you for all of the working group and everything that's been to this point.
Any additional public comment?
Dear Wade Thomas, Board of Trustees, Ross Valley from the Wade Thomas people. We, the Wade Thomas staff, are writing to express, sorry, I don't have readers on right now, our strong support for both the renewal and an increase of the current part. Thank you. I know yours are too strong. Sorry. I have all different levels. I'll try. We are a team of deeply dedicated educators who come from a wide range of prior careers and walks of life, bringing with us a wealth of experience, care, and knowledge that we profoundly share with our students and school community. It is our belief that in order to continue serving our community at the high standard we know is possible, the funding of our district must change. For many of our staff, both longstanding and newly hired, it has become abundantly clear that Ross Valley is a truly special place to work and to be a part of. However, without an increase to the current parcel tax, our district faces significant cuts not only to staffing, but also to the programs that help make our schools so successful. It's a privilege to serve the Wade Thomas community in the way we do, and without the support of the parcel tax, we know that this level of service would be drastically impacted. We appreciate your time, leadership, and consideration of this critical matter.
Anyone else?
Johnny Van Houten, district employee and parent of a student at Hidden Valley, and CSEA president. Quality public education isn't a luxury. It is essential for democracy itself. Our teachers are doing more than teaching math and reading. They are modeling civil discourse, critical thinking, and how to disagree without dehumanizing others. These are the skills that make our community the paradise that it is. Yet our teachers are the lowest paid in the county, grasping at basic costs of living despite their extraordinary investment in both our kids and our community. If we want our teachers to stay, we need to pay them. If we want our children to inherit a functioning community rather than deeper divisions, we need to keep the educators who are literally teaching our students how to be thoughtful, change-making citizens. That is worth protecting at any cost. Thank you.
Just one reminder, this item is about the budget cuts. If you have comments about the partial tax, that'll be on the next agenda item.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So this is just about the cuts,
That's right.
public comments. Eric, anyone else who'd like to make comments on this agenda? Okay. All right, seeing none, I'm gonna close public comment, bring it back to the board for our discussion.
This fiscal cliff has been something that I've been aware of from the moment I decided to join this board. It's not an arbitrary event that came out of nowhere. It's something that I knew that was coming down the pipe. And when you think about our school system, we do have a very beautiful yet fragile ecosystem of our schools, okay? And one small thing that you take out can affect everything. And these cuts, I know they're not arbitrary, I know that they're difficult, but the reality is that they're going to affect our ecosystem and they're going to affect the quality of our schools. But they're necessary. And I appreciate the effort that has gone into this with the think tank of individuals in the audience included who've done this. I have racked my brain looking at each and every single one, and I can't imagine where the creativity, and you know me, I do this for work, I would tell you, have you thought about X, Y, and Z? And I think that you have put together an unfortunate collection that I think is unbearably right.
It's interesting that I was in contact with a superintendent recently, and their district is gonna, I think, cut somewhere to the tune of $4 to $6 million from their budget.
Yeah.
And one of the first things is that they're gonna cut is 40 teachers on special assignment. 40 teachers on special assignment. Those are TOSAs that like aren't classroom teachers. That when we're talking about cuts, we're not talking about like kind of a bunch of TOSAs are amazing, they're super helpful, but if you had 40 TOSAs in this district, it'd be a pretty easy decision to make the cut and would move forward and it wouldn't impact student programs and it'd be easy. We're running all the way to the bone, so the cuts are, every single one of those cuts has an impact on kids.
And we've been doing cuts. Before I became a board member and during this, peeling back without the need for this type of event to prepare for this cliff that we've now come up against. And I don't think people realize that.
Yeah.
And you would know that, Shelley, being here for a long time.
I was actually going to say something similar, and I know that we've talked about it. And first, I just really appreciate everybody coming up and being here with this. But yeah, and the statement about shocking how few people know about how serious this is. And I mean, I've been in public, having been in public service for almost 2 decades, or on the planning commission, talk about different difficult places, planning commission, and then here, and continuing to be shocked over and over and over again with how few people know what's going on. And part of it is the history of it. And so one of the things that I was thinking along this line that would be really helpful going forward would be to help people who are just new to the conversation, and there will be a lot more who come, I didn't know that this was happening, at the further 11th hour than we're even at. But even to have a history, because the district, I'm super proud of all of the staff and this district for doing exactly what you have said, is that we have all the way along when somebody retires or leaves, found incredibly creative ways for people to take on business officer, and you're here on the weekends with, things that happen with facilities, and superintendent who's also doing HR, and, assistant superintendents that are doing curriculum. I mean, everybody, all of our staff has been phenomenal and amazing at picking up the pieces, and it's gone under the radar for so long, which has both been just amazing, but also now scary, because we don't have 40 TOSAs to get what we need. So I think it might be helpful to have some sort of history thing that shows people, because a lot of people immediately go to like, oh, well, there must be too much administrative staff or whatever, because that's kind of a narrative that often goes along when you have to do these. And I think it'd be really helpful to show over the years, like, we used to have this many staff and now we're down to, this kind of thing for that. Like how can we make the cuts prior to these ones show up in our conversations as we're canvassing. So
the critical nature is here, and this is Plan B. This is Plan B.
This is not predestined to the future.
This is Plan B if we can't renew and ask for more.
And increase.
And increase. So this is bringing light, this is serious. And this is not our desired outcome, right? This is Plan B. So how do we, again, mobilize? So I appreciate this, and the Budget Advisory Committee the seriousness was exceptional, and for the folks in the room, like, really hard conversations over the past 12 months, maybe. And this is Plan B. So I just want to reiterate that we can change this. In this room and in this community, we can change the outcome. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I got involved. I was over there for a long time, just totally clueless, like, what's going on? And I don't know, not that I thought that I could come on board and find the crack, because I have no finance background. But I really was so shocked to see the history of all of the cuts. I really was. I was like, how do we even operate on this tiny little, line item budget for? And it really, that has been something I've been so surprised by, is how we do so much with so little. Like it's pretty shocking. Especially with special ed, I feel like it's incredible what we offer with how little we have. I want to pay our teachers more so badly, and I wish we could. And I think the difference now I see from when I started coming to meetings 3 years ago is I do think our community is more educated. I think our school community, more parents, more staff. I think people are more, but that's our small school community, and it is so hard to reach beyond that. It's huge nonetheless. I mean, I think people do know more, and the parents are more involved. I think post-COVID, more parents, right, every year are getting more involved and willing to volunteer in different ways. But we have to pass this tax, and we have to figure out how to get the community, like outside of our school? Like how do we, beyond the parents and caregivers?
That's an interesting thing, like, is that the communicating outside of just our school families? That's something we've been working on, but it's so difficult because I can't get in front of all of the groups necessarily. I'm happy to do that. If anybody has groups that they would like some education, I'm happy to come in. I have a fairly flexible schedule, so I'm happy to talk to groups that might be interested in hearing about just the finances and the situation before we even have a parcel tax. I'm happy to, that issue aside, I'm happy to talk about the financial situation as we're in now. Very happy to do that. Just reach out to me. It's very easy. But it's a challenge, I mean, to get that information out. Especially when there are budget reductions, and if we have people who have little ones coming in who aren't in our school district yet at our schools, they don't know these things as much. So it's like I'm very much, I see the issue, but I also see like we need to get in front of those families so they understand like the repercussions.
And I think the agenda tonight is a reflection of a pairing of the reality of we have a plan B and we have a plan A, which is what we all want. And so I know that we go out and I think they go hand in hand because they're both part of what we're looking at, and to be responsible, we need to be advocating like heck for that parcel tax. That's what we all want. That's the kind of education that we've heard from you all when you come up and talk about how important that education is and what this education means, not just to you and your kids and our kids, but to our community and society and future generations that those kids will grow up to be leaders of. So that's the positive future that we have the control over, and the plan B that we also are taking control of so that it doesn't get taken out of our hands and have the state come in and tell us how to do it. So holding all of that and juggling all of that is a huge responsibility. But I appreciate that we're holding those two things together, and I hope that the community sees that we're holding those two things together to be responsible stewards of education.
The Budget Advisory Committee, I guess that was started with Marcy, right, and Chris, when we first started, and I remember being in a meeting and being like, okay, sign your name here. If you please volunteer to be on this committee. And I was in the, just a parent, and thank you, Chris, for starting that advisory. Thank you for taking it on, Tyler. It has been painful, but so beautiful to see all like staff, parents, board on this committee. I think it's really like brought everybody together and to understand that we have something we have to work together to do. And I really want that committee to end.
You're saying you don't want it to be necessary?
One quick question. Will these cuts cost us any money to implement?
Time.
I know I'm splitting pennies here.
It's staff time. Like as an example, I think a big lift if we have to implement the tier 2 reductions is eliminating the second elective at White Hill.
Yeah.
That's gonna take, committee time and time with the principals and time with the union, time with the teachers. Okay. So not an increase to this the budget, but a loss of time when teachers or people could be planning lessons and grading paper and giving feedback to kids, and we'll be focused on that.
And the cost of morale, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the cost of continuously looking and bringing staff.
Exactly.
When they're unable to stay.
Which if we can't get, we have to then use a service to look for people to do that, right?
And if there's decreased, so one of the commenters' questions, if we get to tier 3 and we move TK to a half day, we lose enrollment. Or, some parents might say, hey, I get 2 electives, I can do Spanish and band, or makers and orchestra at White Hill, and I want to stay in this district and not go to private school for middle school because of that. And if you lose that enrollment, you lose the revenue. So it's not necessarily a direct cost to the budget, but there's implications on the revenue side.
So what this does is it stops a little bit of the hemorrhaging, knowing darn well the patient may not make it anyway, but it pushes us a little further off that cliff faster, is what I'm understanding.
One of the commenters makes an interesting argument in my estimation is this difference between cutting programs versus closing schools, right? Hypothetically, if you just close schools, the kids still get the programs. So the quality still stays there, right? There's a big impact to the community. Whereas if you cut the programs, the kids are impacted, but maybe the community is not as impacted because you don't close the school. So, I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other in terms of the impact to the community overall, and in terms of the actual budget reductions. But if you really take only students first, you would keep the programs and you cut the schools first.
And no one's mentioning that even within those tiers, teachers are leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're gonna lose great teachers again,
We
right?
lost great teachers last year.
Right,
And
so it's
it'll
gonna continue.
be even harder to recruit.
Right, okay, all right, just wanted to make sure that I'm looking at Armageddon the right way. Okay.
Well, something I've thought about is if you put portables on a campus, you're losing all of this yard space. That, like, we kids need that.
And the story time and time again in the Ross Valley is that people move here in part because of the schools and the downtowns and the businesses. They're great communities. And if you lose part of that, people are gonna move here less. They'll move to other parts of Marin or other parts of the Bay to get the quality schools and the cute downtowns with the great restaurants and businesses. And when you think about it from an economic standpoint, a young family with kids is going out to dinner, is buying stuff downtown. You know, part of the economic engine of a community is a family with kids that is going out and spending money in the community for soccer cleats and soccer balls and all the things that parents spend money on.
I just wanted to ask or talk a little bit also about when you mentioned this idea, because clearly these tiers, have the closing of the elementary schools in tier 3. Because part of that, and I had thought about this and it was brought up again tonight, and I'd had somebody else mention something like that as well. It's like this trade-off. And part of the challenge is when dealing with kind of hard infrastructure issues, real estate, like, you sell something, it's gone forever, pretty much. It's hard to get it back, especially with the prices. Or when you close a school and decommission things, reinstituting electives, if a partial like we were talking about that time differential, where you have to start implementing stuff, but you still might have another election coming, or something might change, and thinking about what can you rewind faster, differently than other things. Because I think conceptually, I might tend towards the we'll survive with maybe one less school or something to keep certain programs, but the issue of unwinding, closing a school and then reopening a school and the reshuffling that it has to do with people's lives, and then just the hard infrastructure of closing and with the possibility of reopening and the timing of all of it tended me back towards the structure of the tier 2, tier 3.
And the timeline, it gives us more time for community engagement for closing schools to have it out in the 28, 29. So, I mean, I see both sides of the argument. They're both terrible arguments and terrible situations.
Yeah.
But the time of moving schools to the 27, 28 school year makes it like we should start with a consultant contract at the next board meeting.
Right.
It'd be that tight of a timeline.
And I do remember just the conversation around moving, not even closing schools, but moving boundaries of schools was just boom.
Which you would have to do that if you close schools, because it'd be, unless you did a clean, all the Hidden Valley families go to Manor.
Right. And then thinking about the that conversation sucking all the air out of the room instead of like, no, now we have to pass it in November. Let's not talk about that. Let's focus on passing a parcel tax in November and not focusing on, you know, this school, no, that school, no, this, like, that's not the conversation. As long as we're still going for a parcel tax, our focus needs to be getting that parcel tax passed, not which school, which boundaries, those kinds of things. And so I would much rather that's like that, those kind of community conversations, which are so additionally gut wrenching after all this other stuff. I don't want to take our eye off the ball of getting parcel tax passed until we are in a place where we can't.
Let's talk about that.
A really good point, because I have had a lot of talk with a lot of parents who want to know which schools would it be and what would happen to the space, and community members, the neighbors. I don't want an empty school in my neighborhood, so it would create a lot of noise.
To which the answer is, then let's pass parcel tax. We don't have to have that conversation at all.
Yeah, that's a,
you know, that's the way I would respond
Absolutely.
to that. Is like, we have it as a tier 3. We may have to have those conversations, but what we really should be talking about is passing parcel tax.
Can I make a motion?
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept these budget reductions, plan to be implemented in a 3-year time plan.
Are you doing a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Daniel?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye.
Thank you.
These very, very painful cuts.
Yeah.
All right, our next agenda item D2 is the board discussion for the purpose of giving direction to the superintendent regarding parcel tax renewal timing, structure, and scope.
Great, so tonight, just want to be crystal clear, we're not making a vote. This is only discussion, and really the essential question is, what is the timing, structure, and scope of the parcel tax? You'll give us some direction. We'll come back on February 11th with a proposal to vote on. So a lot of the community conversation should happen tonight and between now and February 11th. And once we get to February 11th, we can still make changes, but really the changes should happen between now and then. So tonight is a discussion without a vote. Here's the agenda. We'll talk a little bit about budget context. I apologize to everyone in the room. You will have seen some of these slides, but I think they're really important context for all of us. Talk a little bit about community engagement that we've had. Talk about parcel tax context. A lot of people are asking about, you know, what's the actual need? How does it compare to other districts? And we'll talk a little bit about that. The alternative options, which is kind of what we just talked about, and then board discussion and staff direction on the timing, structure, and scope. Again, no vote tonight. So you've all seen this, and this is just an articulation that Ross Valley School District has the lowest per pupil revenue in Marin County. You can see we are on the LCFF side of the image this year to the tune of a couple $100,000, $400,000. Every other district is either deeper into the LCFF because they have more low-income foster youth or multilingual students. Santa Fe and Nevada are good examples of that. $6 to $12 million deeper into LCFF. And then on the other side, the basic aid, the overall property tax burden in those towns is significantly higher because people turn over more, they're closer to the city, so people are moving in and out. You can see Ross, I like to use that as an example just because it's easy. 300 kids and $3 million deep into basic aid. You can do a lot of programs for kids and salaries for staff when you have that much money for that few kids. I like to compare us to Larkspur, Corte Madera, Kentfield, Miller Creek. Those are really our 3 comparison districts. So as we move through, I'm going to talk about Ross and Santa Fe and Reed a lot less, but just know that there's always, those ones all pay more and all have better benefits, even though I'm just comparing those 4. Because I'm trying to do as close to apples to apples. This is another way to look at it. We have the, we're well below the statewide average, the bottom 4% of the state. Those highlighted in green are those comparison districts I just mentioned. If we just had the state average at 14,494, we would not be asking for an increase to the parcel tax. We can run our district and pay our teachers given that amount of money.
And that's per student, right?
That's per student. That's right. So you know, not to pick on Ross tonight, but you can see $19,294 per kid compared to our 11,000. That's, you know, a 90% increase. There's a lot we could do with that level of funding. We're spending down our revenues pretty quickly. We're projected this year to be below the board's 10% and near the state minimum requirement of 3% in the third year out. So this is why the county's saying, hey, you need a plan to cut things. To the conversation we just had earlier, we've been cutting at the district level. We cut a computer tech specialist in 2020. That's a district office position. We cut a district office custodian down to 0.4. We eliminated the director of human resources. That's an admin position, admin assistant positions, a sub-caller, a teacher on special assignment. Those are all district office cuts far away from the classroom. So when people are kind of knocking at the door saying like, hey, why don't you cut the district office? That's what we've been doing over the last few years to the extent we can. And then in 24 and 25, we started cutting closer to the classroom because that's what we had left to cut. You can see we've cut half of our counseling program. Our counseling program is still there. All 4 of our counselors are still there. We've eliminated it from the budget and backfilled it with one-time dollars, but it's not in the general fund anymore. We've kind of done the same budget trick with kindergarten aides and librarians with our PTAs backfilling those. So those aren't in the budget right now either.
When did those one-time funds run out?
We're spending them when we get them. So this year we got 500,000. We spent all 500,000. We spent it on one-time salary increases, off-schedule salary increases for staff, and on holding the counseling program harmless. So the money, the 500,000 we got this year, is already out the door. So even though we're cutting programs, we're still giving 0% to teachers. We negotiated with the union this year and settled on a 0% increase. So not only are we the least funded or the least salaried teachers in the district or in the county, we are losing ground with the 0% raise because everyone else is giving more than a 0%. Last year I showed just these bottom 4 because those are kind of the 4 that I'm comparing, including us, and there was a lot more green. Just at like 12 months ago, there's a lot more green, and now there's one green spot showing where we pay better than Millard Creek at the step 16 level.
And that's because they've settled and given increases.
Yep. Yeah, every other district has given increases to the tune of, you know, a part of a percent to 5% or more, depending on the district. But you can see this is where attracting and retaining talent matters. On the left side of the image, hard to attract a teacher when you pay them $64,000 and they've got to drive past 4 or 5 districts to pay $10,000 more. And on the back end, we pay $117, and you know, if you are a single subject teacher at White Hill getting paid $117, you can get the same job at Archie and get paid $40,000 more. Plus, you don't have to pay for health insurance for your significant other or your family on top of that. So it's not just $40,000; it's like $55,000. So it's hard for us to attract and retain talent, and this really impacts special ed, right? We've talked about that a number of times. When we can't attract and retain special educators, we have to have them, and we have to pay a premium to consultants essentially on the outside. So we've been cutting programs, we've been paying our teachers the worst in the county, and the county office is still saying, hey, red flag warning, you have to make a plan to cut and restore your reserves. That's what we just did in the last agenda item. We've done a ton of community engagement in the last 12 months. We started right after Measure E didn't pass. We sent out a survey. We had 164 respondents to that survey. And mostly people said, hey, maintain the senior opt-out, move it to a statewide election. And there was some debate around the structure and the amount. That debate, you'll see it kind of works its way out, and some of it's still live for you tonight. We also did some campaign reflections with the campaign. Basically, their efforts made a difference, and connecting with non-RVSD community members mattered a lot. We did some data analysis looking at the kind of who voted in what parts of the two towns, and essentially loud and clear, we need to connect with folks that aren't in the RVSD community. So who are those folks that are 55 to 65 or are seniors, community members that don't have kids? Those are important ones for us to connect with. We also had conversations with the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers, a rep from the San Anselmo Chamber of Commerce, and a few other community members that had some feedback for us that we wanted to listen to. Then in September, we held 2 parcel tax town halls. It felt like the outcome of those town halls was that folks were leaning towards a flat tax because it was kind of the tax we already had, and it was less confusing. And the increase or the total amount was somewhere between $1,200 and $1,400. So that would be a $458 to a $658 increase from the current parcel tax. We took that information to the parcel tax working group in October, and we considered 5 different parcel tax structures. I'll talk about that here in a minute. And the outcome really there was maintain the current flat tax and increase it to about $1,200 or $458 of an increase. We did community polling around that number. We polled for the 3% inflation rate, the 4% inflation rate, and an increase between 440 and 540. The reason we polled those numbers is because out of the parcel tax town hall and the working group, that $1,200 total tax target was kind of where we were headed. And the community at a rate of, this actually should be 63 to 67%, said yes to that. So depending on the kind of structure. And what that tells me is that we're really close, but we have work to do, in particular with our non-Ross Valley School District families and community members. And then tonight, here we are here listening to the community again. Here's some context to the parcel tax. I won't belabor this one too much. This slide's a little detailed, but here are the 5 different parcel. First of all, we have the guiding principles, right? And the guiding principles really were keep it simple. I think Measure E was way too complex and very confusing for folks. We need to keep this thing simple for folks to understand it. So we considered 5 options. One option was just to do a per parcel, straight renewal and increase. That's kind of what we're talking about tonight. Another one was to keep the per square footage because it reduced the tax for some and increased it for others, but keep a cap on it at about 10,000 square feet. That still means if you've got a 10,000 square foot property, your tax bill would go from 700 to almost 6,000. So that there's some thoughts in the community around that. There was an idea to do a combination of the methodologies where you do a flat renewal and a per square foot increase. If we're thinking about simplicity, that is not simple. But we wanted to genuinely wrestle with the idea, and I think the committee did a good job with that. We also had a little bit of a conversation around just rerunning Measure E. We were at 63%, almost 64%. The community was super close. Why don't we just give it a second try on a statewide election and see if we can get it passed? That was pretty quickly eliminated. We wanted to be humble with the community. The community said no, so let's rework things and come back with a different proposal. And then there was another one that was basically do a renewal and an increase as 2 separate measures. Again, interesting idea, and this would give some flexibility to community members to say yeah, renew, but I'm not increasing, or I'm saying no to both or saying yes to both. There's some optionality there, but there's also a lot of confusion there. So essentially what the working group was saying, hey, flat tax for simplicity and consistency. It's the same tax that we've had for 30 years with an increase. So this is kind of what that looks like. $742 renewal with an increase of about $458. That gets us at about a total tax of $1,200. The real world impact of that is about a $40 increase per month for a homeowner. Just to make things clear there. A term of 10 years, a 3% inflation rate, and the typical opt-outs that we have. You can see some arguments for and against it there on the right side. And there's still a lot of debate around how much we increase this thing by. Just ask for what you need. or ask for what the voters are going to say yes to, and what is that number, and how do we get feedback from community members that aren't RVSD staff or families. Big part of that discussion. So here's what the district needs, and this is why it's not a simple answer. It kind of depends. First and foremost, we want to maintain our student programs and give salary increases to compete with similar districts, Larkspur, Corte Madera, Miller Creek, and Kentfield, not competing with Ross, Reed, and Tam. That would require a $600 increase to the parcel tax. Based on my learning tour from last year, I identified that we probably need to increase intervention programming, think about math intervention and more reading intervention. We could use a board-certified behavior analysis to help particularly with behaviors in TKK in first grade for early intervention so we don't have those behaviors in the tail end of the district. We could use a Spanish-speaking community liaison to engage and make sure our Spanish-speaking families feel welcomed and taken care of. We have very few Spanish-speaking staff, and I think that's a big blind spot for us as a district. And we could increase our maintenance and operations team by one person. That is a skeleton crew taking care of 5 campuses. That would cost us an additional $1 million over the $600. So it would be right at a $750 increase. This would be just under a $1,500 total, throwing out a ton of numbers. But I get critiqued if I just say the increase, and if I get critiqued if I just say the total. So I'm trying to say both to be super transparent. $750 increase, which would mean a total tax of about $1,495 or somewhere right around there. So there's the first and foremost need is maintain and increase salaries. The need I've identified in terms of improving and moving our district forward is $750. But really, when it comes down to brass tacks, the need is to have something pass. So, my $750 is a nice increase and would do good things for the community. But if that gets a no vote every time, it's not worth anything. So you have to get something that passes, and that's why we polled around these numbers. There's the increases on the left, the total tax in the center, and the total increase to the budget for our budget.
And that increase is increased over
The
the existing
4.7
tax
million
that we have.
existing tax.
So it's not increased, the
No.
budget is increased, or the budget includes the regular 770 plus.
That's right. And the polling findings are between 63 and 67% for those 3 increases. I actually reviewed it today, and the polling results kind of favored keep the 3% inflator, not increasing it to 4%. Although there was a lot of debate in the Parcel Tax Working Group about increasing that number, so kind of depends on who you talk to there. And one thing I'm really proud of is there was a significant increase in the favorability for the quality of our schools and the trust in the management of our public funds. I felt like we polled like a year and a half ago, so in 18 months we've had somewhere between an 8 and 14% increase in both of those favorability ratings, which I'm really proud of. Here's some context right here. The ones with the asterisks are the 4 comparison districts, or the 3 comparison districts. Kentfield, even though they're deeper into basic aid than we are deeper into LCFF, they also have almost a $1,900 parcel tax, and they're going to ask their voters to increase it just under $2,000 in June, most likely. There's our need. If you took my $750 number, that's where the need would place us. You can see Larkspur, Corte Madera is at $1,100, and they are still deeper into basic aid, so they're already beating us on the LCFF and on the parcel tax. There's our current parcel tax next year. That's the number for next year, and then you can see Reed and Miller Creek. Miller Creek's a comparison of ours, and also really struggling over there.
Yeah.
And you can see Reed is right where we are, but Reed is like $10 million deep into basic aid. So you could make an argument where, does Reed really need a parcel tax, or do they need that big of so I think it's just, the context here is really important. We did send out a parcel tax input survey, and we had almost 360 respondents, and we're really happy with that result. Getting 360 responses is pretty impressive. I pulled some representative positive comments and some representative negative comments. There was a lot of stuff in both sides of the camp, all over the place. One thing that I continued to see in those comments was a lot of misinformation, or people not clear. Like, one of the things that people on the negative side said, we need to cut the salaries and benefits for our board members.
No.
Next, we're gonna have to pay to be up here.
That would be my salary for the benefit of the public.
When I'm new here, are there benefits that you guys got?
There's
your benefits.
cons.
So legally in California, you can give board members health benefits and you can pay them a monthly salary. Just to be clear to everybody, we do neither of those here, so we could not cut that. But you can see some of the representative positive things there. Whatever amount is big enough to make an impact, but small enough that it could pass. That's kind of that threading that needle. The amount added should be what is required to fund the district for the duration of the parcel tax. No more, no less. $490 feels like something people could swallow. And on the negative side, you've got no increase. People are drowning in tax obligations. Certainly less than $440 for retirees. Learn to manage better. There was a lot of that. There was also a lot of the talk to the state, fix it at the state, which we are trying to do. Property taxes are already too high. And there's some good suggestions there. Again, sustaining the district long term, providing clarity and transparency, which we're trying to do right here, right now. Balance the ambition with electoral feasibility, which is threading that needle. And consider equity and comparison to others, which I just showed you the comparison in the last slide. I think one thing to note in these graphs is staff and parents are like, let's go, 540 or more, let's ask for the need, let's get after it. And then community members are kind of a little bit more mixed. The highest entry there was less than 440, but then the second highest was more than 540. So it kind of depends on who you are in the community, what your view on taxes is, what your view on the school district is, or a whole number of other things. So I think this is helpful, but it also doesn't give us a clear direction. So this is kind of what we're working with. On the left side, that's our current partial tax structure. Flat tax, 8-year term, 3% inflation rate. Those are our opt-outs. No money for admin or pensions. That's the way it's structured today. Next year's renewal rate will be $749. We're talking about what kind of increase do we want to make. It doesn't have to be $440 on the low end. It doesn't have to be $540 on the top end. It could be anything. You guys get to decide that. That's why you get paid so well. 8 to 10 year term. We could talk about the term, 3% inflation rate. I'd recommend holding it there just based on the polling that I saw, although there's folks in the room that will probably argue against that. Same opt-outs, no money for admin. And then one thing we talked about in Measure E is adding community oversight and for transparency. The alternative option, if we don't pass it, we just talked about that. I won't go into detail about this, but this is basically those tiered cuts that I just talked about. And now we're gonna have some time after we hear from, after questions from you and comments from the community, we're going to talk about the timing, structure, and the scope. So any questions before we move to public comment?
I had one question. The one thing that stood out to me in the poll, but I didn't see it in your bullet points, was that there was no appreciable, there was no real difference in the percentage approval rates at the different amounts. And that was something I think that I remember when you did the presentation stood out, is like you're in that poll, you didn't really get a big bump for a lower. It was like if people were gonna vote for it, they were gonna vote for it, and the person is that
Yeah.
still okay?
I think one of the critiques is we could have polled at a wider range for $1,000 increase and a $200 increase. That would have told us more, but this was we had already narrowed the target down through community input to about that $1,200 number, which is why we polled those numbers.
Why is 8 to 10 years? What's the background on that for why? I know there's a district that has a forever tax, but generally that's not Why is 18 to me? It feels like that comes up so like quickly.
When you look at all the parcel taxes across the county, the range is between 8 on the low end, which is us, and 12 on the high end. So it's just kind of, and there's some people will get hung up on the term. I think if you ask for a forever tax, it's going to get dangerous. It's very unlikely to pass. But I think quibbling over 8, 9, and 10 years, I doubt a voter is going to, the difference between a 9-year term and a 10-year term is going to turn them off. I think the actual overall amount or the inflation rate will turn them off faster. I haven't heard any big critiques around the term. Having a 10-year term creates stability. 8-year term, we're back out to voters pretty fast. And I think what I've felt loud and clear from the Ross Valley is like, we get a lot of these and less of these would be nice. So that's something for you all to consider.
Do you have any more questions? Okay. So I have public comment cards here, so I'm gonna go through these, and if I'm done, and if there is somebody else who would like to speak again and you don't have a card here, then we can come up and speak. But I'm gonna start with the ones that I have here. I've got Erica Steeg.
I already went. I forgot my glasses. Remember?
Yes. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on both.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I've got. Thank you. I have Michelle Pelton. You also gonna pass. Okay. Autumn Arbor. Okay.
Hello. Autumn Mercury, school social worker at Pine Hill. And I'm here just to speak in support of the parcel tax increase that's truly sufficient to meet the needs of our district. We talk a lot about the parcel tax in terms of numbers, but I really just want to bring back focus to what it means for our students. And for them, it means the difference between having supports and not having them. It means the difference between having consistency and trusted adults and not. It means the difference between finding passion through electives and not. And I do recognize that this is a significant ask of our community, but if we want students to keep receiving the supports they need, we need to fund them at the level they require. Ross Valley is really special. Families move here because of the quality of our schools, the people who work for them, and care the students receive both academically and emotionally. And if we ask for what is less than necessary, we won't be preserving what makes Ross Valley special, and we'll be back here again in a few years, asking for the same thing after we've lost more. So I think this is a call to action for our community. We need to support a parcel tax increase that is sufficient to sustain the people, programs, and relationships our students rely on. Thank you.
Next I have Christina Workman.
Christina Workman, third grade teacher, Hidden Valley. I just want to share first reasons why I'm supporting Plan A, the one we focus on, Plan A, the parcel tax. Things that have already been touched on, but I just want to make it really clear this has helped me and many of my colleagues feel. We must retain our high quality staff because our students and our colleagues and community deserve nothing less. We know that we cannot attract or retain the best talent when our educators received 0% raises this year and less than 1% last year. We know that we are going to have colleagues leave if this does not pass. We aren't just behind, we're losing ground, as we've seen, to neighboring districts that prioritize cost of living adjustments. We need to save student programs that support student achievement, growth, and interests. We rank in the top 5% of the state for testing, and recently celebrated both Hidden Valley and Brookside with California Distinguished School Awards, and White Hill was recognized as a school to watch. Yet we do all of this while receiving the lowest per pupil revenue in the county, placing us in the bottom 4. So it's like testing at 5%, but we're in the bottom 4% with funding. We're providing really private school level of excellence on a skeleton crew budget, and this gap is no longer a challenge. I think it's clear to all of us tonight that this is a crisis, and we need the community to rise together and invest in our future. We need to take local control of our community, and our students have to have neighborhood schools to go to. As you discuss and decide whether to put a parcel tax vote on the June or November ballot, I strongly urge you to put it up on the June. As you talk about the parcel tax renewal structure and the size of increase, please, again, take into account that we need long-term plans and funding, not just a Band-Aid now for the next few years. As we know, without the funding, we're going to face the 3-tier timeline of cuts that will dismantle the very programs that make our schools distinguished. Also, TAM district is soon going up for a parcel tax, so it seems wise to get ahead of that instead of competing with them at the same time. because that'll really throw the community into a tizzy. My commitment to this parcel tax is I'm going to write the letters. Will make phone calls. I will rally alongside my colleagues, my students and supporters. I will door knock to educate and inform, and I hope everyone joins me. Thank you.
Johnny Van Putten? Johnny? You're okay. That's fine. I have Jeffrey Bean.
I'm reading this letter on behalf of my wife, Alicia, who works at White Hill. I'm writing as a school psychologist at White Hill, a manor parent, and the site rep at White Hill. I want to be very clear about what is being asked of educators if we're going to support this next parcel tax. We already spend significant time outside of our contracted workday to do our jobs well, supporting students, strengthening programs, improving inclusion efforts, and meeting the growing needs of our school communities. We serve on communities, unpaid after work hours, work from home, work through lunches, and take on additional responsibilities to meet compliance and program needs. Despite these demands, our regular responsibilities are met and the work continues to get done. As a staff, we have also repeatedly stepped up beyond our contracted responsibilities, rallying in support of the district last year and as a union the year before that. Each time, educators organized and gave up limited time with their families because they believed these efforts could lead to meaningful, lasting improvements for our schools. If we're going to once again ask staff to commit time and energy to organizing around a parcel tax, that commitment must lead to sustainable results. So as you consider the parcel tax amount tonight, I urge you to ensure that it's set at a level that truly accomplishes its stated goals, allowing for real salary increases, maintaining essential programs, and retaining qualified staff. A parcel tax that merely preserves status quo is not enough if educators are asked to rally and advocate in the community again. It must be for something that genuinely moves the district forward. Continued requests for additional time and energy must be matched by meaningful investments. Respectfully, Alicia, School Psych and Union Site Rep at White Hill. Thanks.
I don't have any more comment cards, but if there's anyone else who'd like to speak, please feel free to come up and take a chair. And we have a couple extra chairs here if you guys wanted to grab them and pull out, since we don't need 4 chairs up here since you're on the ground. Just as long as we leave one up here, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Vladimir Vakulenko. I'm a father of 2 future students, twin girls. They just turned 3. My wife and I moved to San Anselmo in 2002. For our first 2.5 years here, we enjoyed the hiking and struggled through sleepless nights, not really knowing the issues that were going on structurally in the school district, but confident that the amazing schools that we moved to that attracted us to San Anselmo would continue and remain and be there for us when our girls came of age, just like the beautiful trails and hiking was going to be there for when we had finally time and energy to go outside. I was truly just shocked when Measure E failed to pass last year, and that spurred me into an education drive to understand what exactly has been happening with our district to lead to where it was and lead us to what's happening or staring down the pipe going forward. It is unfathomable to ask the district and the teacher community to continue to operating at essentially fixed revenue levels that are now set institutionally by the state through Prop 13, while facing real world cost increases and real world cost of living rises in the Bay Area. That is just mathematically impossible. And for those that are saying, fix it through some magical action of like, get all the districts in Marin to unite, or fix it at the state level, this is just not a real solution. So I urge the community and I urge the district to find real solutions tonight that we can enact locally. And part of that is, again, supporting a parcel tax increase that will not just maintain the status quo of where we are right now, which is after probably 3 years of cuts that Tyler just showed, but will actually undo that and get us back to the type of school district that I think this was on track to be, before all those cuts over the last 3 years. This is not something to just maintain, hey, we're already tracking behind and let's just kind of keep floating. We have to get back and be a peer district, not just kind of at the bottom of our peers, but get back to, I think, what Ross Valley can really attract. It is the responsibility, I believe, of the citizens and of our neighbors to make the investments in public schools that previous generations have made into their education. It is actually the oldest civic tradition in the United States. Public education is older than the United States Constitution. The very first public education bill was the Northwest Ordinance that was passed by the Articles of Confederation still, the old outdated system before the Constitution. So it is unfathomable that in the last 30 years, California and Ross Valley in particular now over the last 3 years is failing to uphold a public commitment that has been ongoing for 250 years.
Jenny Wright, Classified Union Secretary. I ask that we all look beyond ourselves at this time and look to what our students really need. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, and thank you for the work you do. I'm Scott McDonald, Wade Thomas parent. My wife Marjorie McDonald works here in the district as a school psychologist at Wade Thomas and Hidden Valley Elementary. I want to express my support tonight for advancing the parcel tax increase to the June ballot for the future of our district. Since you're looking for feedback, I'm in favor of the 10-year term discussed and the larger increase being considered as well. But I do defer to you to consider what is both necessary and likely to be supported by voters. We felt very fortunate to have such great teachers for both of our kids at the district who pour their time and energy into their work. And I do worry about the funding shortfall taking a greater toll on them, while affecting how willing new teachers are to join the district and overall morale, and importantly affecting our children. For parents, I think the parcel tax is really a no-brainer and an obvious next step, as you've discussed, to support the district, which simply does not have enough money to pay teachers a competitive wage into the future and continue its critical programs. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, and I believe the district wants to do what's right for the teachers and staff. I'm asking you as leaders of the community tonight to support this effort, and thank you for your time.
Do you have anyone else who'd like to come up and make a comment?
Hello, good evening. My name is Alana Lauren, and I'm a parent of a Wade Thomas first grader and TKer this year. And I first wanted to say to all the teachers and educators and to all of you in the room who are giving your time, we are grateful. I come from a line of educators myself. Both my parents were administrators in special ed. And to that point, when my son 2 years ago was referred to special education, and we've accessed it through the district, I have to say, we had many conversations as a family about the level of support that we received, and from lifelong administrators, the accolades that they had for our district and for all of the support was through the roof. And so I agree, we are operating at an incredible level given the funding shortfall, and I just want to say how grateful we are for that. I also wanted to say I have a bit of political experience, and I have to say, I was really shocked, just like everyone else, with Measure E failing and quite disappointed. However, we're living in very complex times, as we all know, economically, and we have a lot of retirees in our district who are on fixed incomes, and another tax is confusing and scary. And so if we're going to, first of all, I'm highly in favor of moving forward with the June parcel tax and the increase, which I think our teachers and the facilities and the administrators so deserve, but I think we have to do it smarter. So what I would say is if you do choose to move forward with this, we have to think about how do we appeal to those who maybe are opposed and they're not opposed for bad reasons, and how do we seek to understand them? And I'm so grateful for the superintendent for the listening sessions that you've done. And I think messaging as clearly as we can in the most simplistic way so people really do understand this complex history that has taken so many of us hours to understand ourselves when people are living in busy times and they're being inundated with what's going on in the world. How can we make this something that's relevant? And the last thing I'll say is historically, as you may know, election turnout for special elections and statewide or federal elections, such as off-cycle in a June, historically turnout is lower. So that's what we're going to be contending with. And I don't think it's insurmountable at all when you look at the neighboring districts. They've been able to pass taxes during those off-cycle elections, but it's going to take all of us coming together to get this over the finish line. So that's it. Thank you.
I don't have anything prepared. My name's Amy Cody. I have 2 grandchildren at Wade Thomas. I moved here 6 weeks ago. I bought a house here so I could be near my grandchildren. I was an educator for many, many years from the East Coast. This is a collective failure of the whole community, and it's egregious and shocking and shameful. And I've only been here 6 weeks, but I'm committing. I'm the demo that you're looking at, right? There's like maybe 2 other people here that kind of look like me. I'm committing to doing whatever it takes to educate people like me, to go out and talk to them, to have coffees and teas at my house, to explain it to them, to door knock. And I think every single person here has to commit to doing whatever it takes to pass this parcel tax. And the fact that teachers have been squeezing water out of stone for this many years and doing miraculous things with the little money that they're paid is disgusting. And I think that you should pass a parcel tax that will fund the teachers' work in the way that it should be. I'm all for it, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to help pass this thing. Thank you.
Any more comments there? I'm Anya Twig. I'm a mentor parent. I have 2 kids there. I was pretty involved with Measure E, and I don't think it gives us any good to say how shocked we are or not. What we really should put our effort in now is to figure out how we're going to do it and do it right. And actually, truly, I think that the biggest point is really to connecting to those 15,000 voters that are not our parents. Because really, it is a community. It will take us, a community, all coming together to do it. Lagunitas just got 74% on their election today. That tells us, again, it's not like it's a new thing. We've had this thing for 30 years. Every single other district has a parcel tax. We can talk our ears out to what state is doing wrong. I think we all agree that LCFF calculator is a mess. Prop 13 doesn't help us a thing. We can't do anything about those things, and certainly not on the timeline that we're talking about here, because we're going to be completely dead and underwater by the time state changes something. So the only thing we can do is to renew and increase this parcel tax. And so that's really all we should put our focus on from now on until we do it. And I would encourage everyone in this community, not just go and talk about it, but join me in efforts to actually make sure that we go and talk to every one of those voters, knock on every single door. That's really what we're gonna do, and that's the only way to get it over the finish line. And so that our kids, it's a community thing, right? It's for our kids, it's for our community, it's our future. It doesn't really matter what is happening on the federal level. This is our local thing, and we don't have any other instrument but this local funding. So let's just make sure that we ask for the right thing, ask for enough so we don't have to do it in 3 years, because that's a lot of work and I don't want to do it again in 3 years. No, really. So yes, let's just all get together and talk to everyone you know, and talk to me how we all gonna go do it together. Thank you.
Is this one on? I'm getting quick in here. Dara Matson. I have 2 kids at Hidden Valley Elementary, and I'm on the PTO there. I just want to be clear that I am very much in support of this. I have a question about a citizens initiative, and I'm wondering, given the almost win that we had it been a simple majority, the measure would have passed. Is there a future in which the district considers partnering to have a citizens initiative? And in that way, I just would love to go around saying, like, this is happening, whether you, one way or another, knowing that we can get that 55%, given the history that we've had. I just would feel so much more confident having it on the ballot if we only needed a simple majority and not the super majority. So I guess my question is, has that been considered for the future? I, of course, want it on the ballot. I want the support, but now we know that there's new residents, old residents, teachers. There's people here that feel the passion and want to step up and support. And I'm wondering if, lean into that. Or I don't know much about it, but just putting it out there.
Hi, my name's Natalie. I have 2 kids at Wade Thomas School, and I worked on Measure E campaign last year. And the one thing I'll ask of the trustees as you consider the dollar amount for this increase is that we need to understand what we are saving and what we are gaining with this exact number that we add to the parcel tax. I'm going to be going out in front of voters, and I want to be really confident that whatever number we've chosen in this slew of options, I can stand there and say, this is what this number is going to accomplish for us. It's going to save schools or whatever it is. And this is what it's going to do for us in the future. I think regardless, it's a lot of it. We're adding a lot to the existing parcel tax. And I want to be able to, as someone on the campaign, speak to why we're adding that, why that number, and what difference that's going to make in the schools and the community. Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name is Heather Selby. I'm a first grade teacher at Hidden Valley, as well as a parent of a 2nd grader there and a parent of a 7th grader at White Hill, and a property owner. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, and as my staff could say, when I see something that I think is wrong, I speak up. And a slide that really concerned me tonight is the what does this district need that Tyler presented. And when I looked at those numbers, I noticed that at the top of what the poll suggested was 540. And then on the other side, it said first and foremost, to maintain and to give raises, we need 600. And immediately my heart sank, because right now, if you come to our campuses, you can tell we don't have enough staff to support what these kids need. And I'm worried both for my own children and for my students. The teachers are doing so many jobs. We joke that our admin assistant should have multiple hats to change for every different job she's working. So I just really want to stress that our schools need this money, and I think that a slight difference in what we're asking the voters for, I don't know how many yes and no's that's going to change, but I don't think we can make it with anything less than maintaining. And honestly, what Tyler's talking about on his 24-25 learning tour, our schools need those things. And we need them now, not in 2 years. So I just had to get up and say those things. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Caroline Brewster. I'm a Hidden Valley parent of a first grader and a soon-to-be TKer, which, thank God, wouldn't drop off. It's been a long day, second commission meeting of the night. But I just appreciate the administration, the public servants that are in the room, our teachers that are behind us, and our parents. Our community is with you. And we are going to, and our newly moved to San Anselmo, my new best friend back there. But to the point that was just made, I know there's a million examples of this, but one that I was learned about this week, the principal for Hidden Valley is also our lunch, doing all the school food work, which is a job that we're trying to hire for, but we can't anyway. So there's a million examples of this. We're so stretched, and I think too, to the point that was made before, right? The what are we getting for the people who were involved last time and are starting to have these conversations now. You know, we're already under, so we need to ask for what we need, because it's hard to keep coming back. And there are going to be things on the June ballot. I do think it's important that we're on the June ballot for all the strategic budget planning needs, but there's going to be simple majority tax votes. There's going to be a transportation measure. There's going to be a hospital measure. I mean, people will be asked to add to their already tax burdened selves. So we need to be, you know, clear about what we need and what we're adding and ask for enough. So I don't envy your decisions tonight, but we're behind you and we'll get it done. Thank you.
I really wasn't. Hi, I'm Danielle Wittenberg. I really wasn't planning on talking tonight. But I have a child in first grade at Hidden Valley. I have a child in second grade at Hidden Valley. My oldest is 23 with special needs, and he went all the way through MCOE. The cuts actually that I saw tonight were different than what I had seen. It was a little bit more in depth, obviously, than what I had seen before, and they made me sick because not only are we going to be cutting so many things like our schools, but that also means that there's no raises again. So those teachers are incredible. The children in our community are incredible, and we owe everything really to the teachers because they spend more time with our children sometimes than we get to. I think that people have a false sense of not only how much our teachers do and how much they give and the wonderful environment that they create for our children, doing so much with so little, but creating a happy, positive work environment where our children thrive. That's a really hard thing to do when you're stressed out on the inside about your own livelihood. So thank you to all of you here, because you guys really do make all of our lives as parents better. So that can't be undervalued. And also, as a parent, I volunteer a lot. The parents come in and we help with yard duty. We fill in for the librarian. We do different things because there is no money. There's just none. The well is dry. So all the community members that think that somebody's pocketing something, there isn't even a penny on the floor. So it's not how it works. And sometimes you have to dig deep, you have to plant the tree, and you don't get to enjoy the shade. You just get to watch it grow. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think we need to pass it. I know we need to pass it. I'd be willing to do anything. I think the square footage gets really confusing. I think we need a flat amount. We don't live in a tract community. It doesn't mean that you made a lot more money when you have a bigger house. Sometimes you pay a lot of money for a small one. Sometimes you lucked out. Sometimes you got it first. It doesn't matter, but it needs to pass, and I think we'd have an easier time if we did it in a flat sum. So that's thanks.
I also was not planning on speaking tonight. I'm Taylor. I have a first grader at Hidden Valley. Miss Selby is his wonderful teacher, and then I have a 3-year-old, so almost a TK. And I'm a homeowner in Sleepy Hollow. I just wanted to kind of speak. We moved here, of course, because of the schools. The experience has been amazing. It's interesting to see that we've been struggling for 5 years I had no idea. So I think as you all kind of think about what should the terms look like, what should the right amount be, it has to be enough that we're not talking about this again in 3 years and marching towards another cliff. So I think that's just something to consider. I know it's a hard job to figure out how to thread that needle perfectly, but it needs to be worth it. And I know everyone's kind of spoken to that a bit, and it's going to take so much effort to get this passed and going. So it just really needs, the juice needs to be worth the squeeze here. And for me too, I think one of the major slides that stick out for me is us up against our neighboring school districts. And I think as you're talking to people that maybe oppose it, or they have no idea what their neighbors in Kentfield are paying, or, you know, that's like the biggest thing for me. I think many of us here in Marin think of Marin as one community in many aspects. And so when you see that we're not measuring up to our neighbors and we're not contributing even close to what our neighbor down the street is, I think that's a big eye opener, and something that hopefully as we kind of figure out what the marketing looks like for this campaign, I think it's a really good talking point as we start canvassing and speaking to our neighbors about that, because I don't think people know that. So thank you so much for all of your work. Thank you to the teachers. I think we all know how much they do, and thank you guys for all the time you put into this.
Hi, everyone. Give it up for our teachers, and I don't care if we sing off the clock. It warmed my heart to come in here and see Erica and Sandra and the teachers that my kids stuck with the whole time they were at Wade Thomas, and they're still here, even with only getting a 1% raise and no raise. So. My name is Frank Gomez, and I love this community, and I love our teachers. We do have a very special place, and I do want to also make sure that we make it clear, we are hearing and listening to the seniors, but the messaging has been weak, and I've talked to Daniel and Anna and Rachel, and Chris and Tyler on many occasions. We have to do better messaging. I know you say it's a hard time, Rachel, to get to these people. We need to figure it out and stop finding out why it's hard and figure out a solution to make it easy. See, we make a lot of excuses why we can't get the messaging out. Let's figure out how we do it together. And the opt-out, we hear you, our seniors, our elders, we hear you loud and clear, opt out. Because some of the things that I've heard, and Daniel brought it up at Wink the other day, is we pay more for sewers than we are paying, for our teachers to make a livable wage. And so to the gentleman that spoke earlier, when he mentioned that it's hard here, and we do understand it's hard, but that would be like all of us saying we don't want to pay into Social Security anymore, because it may not be here when we turn 65. So that's a perfect example. It's something we need to get the messaging out. And I think sometimes we're trying to be too equitable and too inclusive and all this other stuff, because that's where some of the younger people are saying, well, it's not equitable because that person's house is bigger. Go look in the mirror and look at yourself. Stop worrying about what everybody else has. We need to start looking within, look in a mirror and reflect, and let's do what's best for our community and our teachers. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm gonna be going a little rapid fire. I think, the person I stood out to me the most so far, everybody's been giving great feedback and comments, is the woman who just moved here to be by her grandkids, and I think is notable because she's coming not from the Marin County or the local bubble, and I think there is a serious bubble here that needs to be burst, and all sorts of bubbles people talk about, but this does not seem to be one of them, because anybody could go to the U.S. Census website. They do surveys of all the public school finances in Excel with over 14,000 school districts. Open right here, you can see what everybody's paying. There's many dozens of different ways they break down state, local revenue, property taxes, sales tax, everything. And they also compare things by per $1,000 of personal income. And Ross Valley School District, just to get to the national average of school funding on a per $1,000 of personal income basis, which includes seniors on fixed incomes, we'd have to have a parcel tax that's about $3,000. And nobody's considering anything like that now. But that's just to get our school district to have the national average amount of state and local funding. People, I understand, don't want increase in expenses, and it is difficult for everybody. But nobody's focusing on how great a situation they've had, all things considered, in this country. I think one person asked about a citizens initiative, and I agree that would be a great idea. I think people just need to look at the San Francisco case that went all the way to the state Supreme Court and got to stay in place. And the school district, the unions all had a heavy influence in partnering with that citizens initiative, which needs 50% plus one to pass, so long as you're not actually spending district money on this. We have heard a lot about not underfunding in our parcel tax because it's going to be way bigger of a headache to try and get an increase when all of a sudden we're not being able to meet our expenses, even though we just passed a parcel tax. And if we don't get enough to cover raises, to cover the $1.7 million in deficit spending we have over the next 2 years, we're going to have so much attrition, our costs are going to increase more, and then we will have needed to raise more in the first place. Also, our current parcel tax, since its last passing, lost 11% to the inflation rate over the time. That was at 3%. I don't think that's tenable.
Ben Lucchese again. We'll keep it short. I think, first off, Sarah Puckett back here, she was, as I said, my daughter switched schools, kindergarten to first grade, and that can be a pretty rough shift, and she absolutely adored Miss Puckett. And she had her for 2 years in a row, and she was really excited about that, and it shows the importance that teachers play. So there's that. I think the 67% vote is something that I missed when I voted for E. I didn't see that it was a 67% vote, and I feel like I'm a pretty active participant in democratic process. So I think in many ways we need to really get that word out and be very clear to voters, because there may have been voters that stayed home, and those are the types of people that we should also be looking at, is people that didn't vote last time, and really try to work to get them out, make them single issue voters. If there's anything that'll get you to the polls, make it helping kids in schools, make it helping the teachers. And then finally, I think we need to be clear that about somebody mentioned before about the discrepancy between our communities and communities right next door to us, and the fact that maybe get into the competitive side of a lot of people here and say, oh, do you want to be the lowest? Let's be the best. But no, I think really one thing that I really want to push is just being clear that this is not going to be an easy path, and that a 67% vote requires as much turnout as possible. And if you stayed home last time, try to get out this time. That's it.
More public comment?
My name is Noah Rosen. This is my first year at this school district, and it's also my first year as a teacher. And coming into school, I've been really supportive of all my co-teachers, obviously, but they've also done a great job of accepting me and making sure that I feel supported in this community. As a new teacher, there's lots of peaks and valleys that you go into. Some days you feel like you're the best teacher in the world, and other days you feel like you can't get anything right. And today I found myself in one of those valleys. And in a lot of other school districts, they aren't lucky enough to have the staff that we have at White Hill, where I feel like I can go into any teacher's classroom, receive a lot of feedback and support. But today, because of our staff, I feel comfortable to go into teachers' classrooms and say, hey, I had a really bad day. How can I improve? What can I do better? So I think we really need to think about how lucky we are to have this staff, and I think we need to keep that in mind. And I think we owe it to our staff members that have been in this district for a while, who've established this great culture we have, not just at White Hill, but I'm sure at all of the elementary schools. And I think we owe it to them to pass this parcel tax. And I can speak for probably all the other teachers here, but I'm willing to I'll knock on doors, I'll put up flyers, but I definitely want to see this get passed. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Koss. I'm a mom to a 2.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old, so incoming Brookside, hopefully. I myself actually grew up in San Anselmo, and I went to Brookside, lower campus, upper campus, White Hill, and then Drake High School, or now Archie Williams. Definitely sad to see some of the potential outcomes here, so thank you guys for the transparency and for all that you do for the district. I just wanted to say I have parents who live in San Anselmo. I'm a property owner in a different home nearby, but that demographic really does not have awareness. So I think bringing that awareness to, as you mentioned, to seniors. My parents are in their 70s, but I think that is definitely key. I think it's an echo chamber talking to parents in the schools, and I'll be working with, I'll be asking parents like Natalie and others who are really involved, but certainly I think the realtors, the preschool parents, my kids go to San Anselmo preschool, and I don't think the parents have any idea. So I think happy to chat more, Tyler, about how we can help, but I think those are the areas that we need to work on. I was aware of Measure E and I voted yes for it, obviously, but it wasn't deeply involved. So thank you for all that you do.
Any more public comments? Last call. I'm going to close public comment now. Get back to the board for discussion. Certainly appreciate all of the comments. The love for our teachers. I feel all of that. I really appreciated the people who were like, do it for this amount, do it for, for this timeline, do it for this escalator, do it in June. Like, those are all helpful because that's what we need to decide tonight. It's like, what are we going to tell Tyler to say, hey, look, we need to look at a June election. We need to look at this. Like, personally, I think we should look at a June election because we need the money before we have to start doing these cuts. And I think this is our best shot at it. It's like Daniel said, it's the plan A. We want plan A. So that's my 2 cents on that for just just that piece of it. It's like June versus November.
Yeah. I think we can speak on behalf of her. Yes,
Yeah.
we're getting
June.
June, definitely. Like, next.
Okay, so that's easy. You got that? You got that?
Timing done.
Okay, so structure.
I don't want to sit here in a couple of years and say, why are we back at this place? Didn't we pass this?
Are you skipping number 2?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Timing, yes, I agree. Structure, I think flat. But I do think that the need and what the voters will approve. I mean, I can't fathom continuously looking at my tax bill, which I had sent to me while I was sitting here. And I pay more for sanitary sewage than I do for the schools. Okay? And that's splitting hairs. That's splitting hairs. Think about it. You go out to dinner, maybe we don't spend $4.90, but you spend $150, and you don't even think twice about doubling the $15 to leave $30 extra. It's just there, right? I think if I sit here in a few years and we're still struggling with teachers coming to us and saying, you know, we're not, our cost of living is not keeping up with the rate of inflation, or we have to cut something because we can't bear the brunt of what some external inflationary aspects have done to us by relying on a 3%, which is reasonable. I think we need to get to the ultimate number and say that's what we need and ask for it. And the work is going to come from us going out and being able to articulate why it is that number. We can't just say we want to do this. We want to provide a great education. We want to prepare teachers more. That's butterflies. We need to have a 3-point talking point, get it out within 20 seconds, and ask for what we need so that we're not sitting here in a few years having the same conversation with no solutions. That's me. That's what I say.
Even at the 540 escalator, we still pay more for our sewer.
That is
public information. The other RVSD. Oh, our naming is.
Oh my God.
Just Google it. Everybody will continue to pay more for our sewer than we will even at a 540 escalator. That's a compelling talking point. This is one of the things we have to rally behind as a society. So there were so many awesome comments made today about the community. Teachers are wonderful. Yes, you guys are awesome. And the community impact as well. So I think if we get behind both, because again, my elderly neighbors are like, yeah, teachers should get more money. I should get more in social security. Okay, but here's how it's going to impact the community. Here's how it's going to impact the small businesses. Here's how it's going to impact this street. So I think and a lot of people talked about the community aspect. So I think there's a both. I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to follow the smart people in the room on what are the talking points. But I think there's a community aspect as well. And maybe we did that with Measure E, but right, I think we learned a lot from that, and so we'll implement some of those changes. But I think there's a massive community buy-in that we can get from the people that didn't vote or who are leaning negative today, right? And then one other question I had was Tyler, you had it. Somebody asked, if you opt out, like, could you still contribute somehow? Right, like, so if I'm over 65 and I'm opting out, but is there a way to that's a total of a tiny thing. But there was one of the comments that was up there was, well, could I pay less than 440? Right, maybe that was just one comment. But again, how do we look at this to?
And the senior opt-out it's pretty easy. We see seniors come in all the time. We fill out paperwork. We have a staff member who helps out with that. And there's a ton of seniors that live here that don't opt out, that say, hey, I think this is a community good and I'm going to continue to pay it even though I'm on fixed income. I'll make adjustments other places. So I don't want to paint a broad brush about seniors because it's varied and different for each and every senior and the costs that they have. But there are a lot of seniors in our community that say, hey, I can't opt out and I'm not going to because I believe in it. But we can't change the number for them. It's either a clean opt-in or a clean opt-out.
And the assumption that all the families voted previously, I think, was not a correct assumption, right? For Measure E, we had 700.
We had 700
families
staff and or family members not vote.
Didn't
that are
vote.
Registered voters.
And that, a handful of them would have pushed this over. So it's that understanding that everybody doesn't know about this and everybody doesn't know how critical it is. And so how do we rally everybody, every neighbor that you know, right? That's the key, and that's where the community really.
Strong marketing.
I think that's part of it, right? I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit. I mean, I think the marketing matters a lot, but I also think it's like a grassroots campaign. It's not just, tonight, it's a wonderful turnout. It's lovely to see so many people in the audience and hear from the community. But on an average night, we have 3 people here and maybe 4 or 5 people watch online. And the flyers that we send out, I would venture to guess 80% get round filed before anyone reads them, right? So This is a face-to-face, person-to-person conversation. The next time you're at a backyard barbecue, next mountain bike ride you go on with your friends, if you are having play dates with your kids, like talk about it there. Soccer practice, ballet, like it needs to be a conversation as often as you can with as many people. You don't have to have the talking points perfect. You can have the essence of them and then forward them to the website or forward them to me, and I'm happy to answer the questions that folks have. But it's a grassroots campaign.
But I think the mentality of support this measure as opposed to save our schools. People love to be heroes here. They love to save people. They love to save everybody, right? Just turn it around and say, and this is saving our schools.
Yeah.
You know, turn it around. It's not about support. We're at an inflection point where if this doesn't pass, our schools will fail. You have the power by voting yes to save our schools. And I think we need to really transition into that mentality, not just saying get the word out, but really getting the word out in a way that empowers people to want to vote, as opposed to empowers people to say, oh, that's interesting, I'll pass this on, I'll take care of it.
But how much, Chris?
How much?
just on this point really quick before
600.
Before we move on, is that there is a group of Wade Thomas parents that have spent a handful of weeks over the holiday breaks putting together a website on their own accord, and it's called Save Our Schools RVSD.
Great.
So if you go to that website,
I thought I was being original.
No, SOS.
it's a really robust website.
That's
where
it.
you could have your questions about state funding answered. They've probably got like 25 FAQs on there if you want to talk about whatever you have a question about. That website pretty much does the duty. Those parents have been fantastic and wanted to put that together, without us.
That's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciate everybody coming here and making comments, especially those of you who came but weren't thinking you were going to make a comment, and then you came forward to make a comment. That really means a lot, and it's important for us to just get all your thoughts and advice, but also just to hear from you and I feel inspired by that level of engagement and new engagement. I'm feeling confident that we'll be able to do this and to make this happen. So I just feel very appreciative. And I also feel really appreciative because one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the school board was about the community and about democracy and about this is what we do as a society, is that we all pitch in. We all pitch in by showing up. We all pitch in by paying taxes. Public schools funded by the public, governed by the public, with the public in attendance and participating on community groups that advise it. This is what it's about. This is what inspired me. And so being here tonight and hearing you and seeing that list of all of the effort that all of the community made, that is public in action for our public schools. And that's what we're showing to our kids. That is the democracy that you talked about. It happens in the classroom, happens up here at the boardroom, that it's all of us pitching in and making it happen. And I feel like we're gonna keep doing that. What I heard a lot of is that ask for what you really need. Don't pass something that just loses ground slower, because that's not, it's not inspirational, and B, it's not gonna work. Not just the status quo, but moves us forward. So I think the messaging I think there's twofold. One is the messaging of this can't not pass, period. I mean, that's the SOS. We are at a pivotal existential moment of this can't not pass, save our schools. And at the same time, I hope that we choose something that's not just fear-based, let's just not sink, but it can't not pass. And we chose to ask our community
to go above just that like stay on your fingernails moment, but to go for what's needed and that motivational part of it too. So I think it's both.
Yeah, save our schools.
I think it's to save our schools.
$50 a month to save our schools.
Let's save our schools
That's
and
$600 a year.
save our schools and make them, wonderful. Continue to move forward and upward and better. So that's kind of where I'm at. 10 years, high end of what we were thinking.
You think 10 years?
I'm thinking 10 years. I'm thinking the high end.
High end, yeah, definitely high end.
I heard the inflation, like keeping up with inflation, 3%. Do we go with more than that? I don't know. I know.
No.
Okay.
I think the fewer
I'm
things
open.
we change on it from our current one, the simpler it will be.
Yes. So simplicity. So I think it's balancing that simplicity thing. Yeah.
The 3 is.
Okay. I'm fine with that then. So that's kind of that's where I'm at, and I'm yes, June. If for some god awful reason June we don't get it passed in June,
It will.
then it will. But then we start taking another. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. But I say let's go for it in June, and I feel encouraged by everybody. Not just giving us advice, but then like the personal commitments of people saying, I will do this, I will go. And I totally agree with you. This is a person to person, get out the vote, appeal to hearts and minds, but it's gonna take that person to person, talk to everybody that you know all the time. And I feel like we have a whole lot more information for people to take with them now than we did last time as well.
And I think that's I think sometimes, I agree with everything everyone's saying. This is democracy in action at its purest form, the school board. And for every school district and I really think this is where the community interacts with governance in the most pure form. And it's really beautiful to see that in action tonight. It's a great model for all of your kids that you're here, for those of you who wrote in, for those of you who made public comment. So sometimes doing something feels overwhelming and big. Like, oh, I've got to volunteer all these hours. Yeah, you can do that. You can go big and, help out and be on the committee. But it can be something small. It can be, you're out mowing your lawn on Saturday and you see your senior neighbor. Go talk to them about it. Ask them a question. Have you heard? And you don't have to have the talking points perfect. You just have to have the essence of it. It can just be a coffee date with a neighbor. It can be simple stuff. And I think doing a lot of those simple things make as big or bigger difference than putting in 5 hours of, volunteering every week. It can be simple. And I don't want people to think that volunteering means this huge obligation. It can be it's really simple.
Yeah, this is my favorite. Our content is difficult, but this is my favorite meeting that I've been on the board since July because of all of you. The seats have not been full, and I'm so thankful. And the energy in here, while this is serious and sad, it's so great to have you all here. 25 of you, because we don't know the answer. We care deeply about what everybody in this community thinks. And I actually I think I've been having we just gotta get this passed. After Measure E failed, I was just what is the number that we can get it passed? But I love that it's not just, yes, we have to get it passed, but we don't have to do it with 440, and I don't that's not, we're gonna be in the same place, and I cannot bear that for our community. That will break us. So I agree, we need to go 600. We cannot let the quality of our schools.
There's not a lot of difference when we did the Godby research between the numbers.
Right.
We're at 440, 490, or 450. Anybody can look back on the December meeting. It's all about 65%, 64%.
67.
I think what I'd like to say. I think what I'd like to see
Throw the gavel to.
is is when you come back with the parameters that we've said, this is what we'd like to see, just like you've provided us with what it would look like if we don't go there, what are the things that we're gonna see implemented in our schools if we're able to pass this parcel tax at the highest ask? I'd like to see phase 1 in the first 2 years, phase 2 in the next 3 years, rate of inflation would equate. Okay,
It's the 600 and the 750.
there you go. Yeah, I think the 600.
And what are we saving? Electives, PE, right?
Both
It's like
sides.
all-
That's the save our stuff,
That's
and this
the-
is the and
The
we will
wonderful
be.
comment somebody had, what are we adding and also what are we saving? Like,
I mean, the difference of 1 and 2 electives is like, what did Autumn say? Finding passion or not? I mean, that is so accurate. Like, just having, we cannot cut. It's like we need it. We need all these things to
Sometimes
make
the
it.
elective is the thing
Yes.
that attaches a middle school kid
Oh,
to
yeah.
school
Yeah.
and keeps them coming and
Absolutely.
behaving and engaging. And part of the 2 electives is also an equity issue, because if you have a student that has special needs and needs extra support and you only have 1 elective, typically their elective period is the support from their IEP, or if they're a multilingual learner, it's the multilingual learning support, so that they're not getting band or orchestra or makers. So it's, if you think about our low income families or our Latino families or our students that have special needs, them not having an elective is, I don't think our community would want a school that does that.
but our neighboring communities don't have 2 electives, right?
It's true.
That
Yeah.
seems to be something that's common for districts to cut to save a significant amount of money.
Which is why it's on the
Which-
tier 2
yeah.
cuts and not on the tier 3.
I'm really uncomfortable asking for a $600 increase, not because I don't think we need it and not because I don't think teachers deserve it and the students deserve it. Like, none of that. I don't think we're gonna get it to pass. That's my biggest concern. I've got probably more parcel tax experience than just campaign experience than anyone up here. And I don't think that will pass. That's my biggest concern.
So what's the
We
number,
need something to pass.
549? What's a pricing?
I don't know that 440 will pass.
What?
That's just, so the thing is like, it's lovely that we have so many people here and I'm so grateful. The people who aren't showing up are the ones who are not going to tell me that they don't want us to increase it. And I've been reaching out to my neighbors, my senior neighbors, and my ones who are in that 55 to 65 where they can't opt out, they don't have kids here. I've been talking to them and they're balking at the 440. And so I'm just concerned that people who are not gonna vote for it aren't here to speak up and that we're not gonna hear until they don't vote yes. And so that's what I'm scared about. I'm not saying that I don't want to ask for 600. If you guys vote for that, like, but I'm just saying like, that's my hesitation right here. I'm really concerned.
And I
I
think there were a lot. I think this last people were like, I can't believe it didn't pass.
Yeah.
And I think part of the shock was because people didn't tell us that they didn't vote for it, or there was this sense of even walking door to door and knocking on doors, which I think we were all doing. I think there was the shock because it felt like there was a lot of support, and then all of a sudden there wasn't. And it was, I think that was part, so I think there was a lot of people who didn't vote for it, but who weren't really vocal about it, or even when you talk to them at the door, they're like, yeah, I support schools, it's great. But then probably then didn't vote for it.
I think the people that are gonna vote no are gonna vote no, they're gonna vote no. They just don't want an increase in taxes, where our missed population was everybody that didn't vote.
Yeah.
And so many people didn't, and they thought, oh, it'll pass without my vote, or they just didn't know an election was going on. Like, I think we have more time than we did with Measure E to campaign, to educate people. We have a lot of learned experience. I feel that like it's really just, I mean, we had 64, 63, what do we have, 64% with Measure E, that it's just, I think with a different campaign strategy than we had, that we can get it. And I completely agree with the consensus here that we can't go for, put ourselves in a situation where we're gonna be back here making more cuts in a couple of years.
And I think these two tables kind of articulate what we're talking about here. Folks in the room right now, and I really appreciate Pascal who came and shared his thoughts at the beginning of the last item. I think it takes a lot of courage to come in and share a differing opinion, and I want more people to come share their opinions. So I appreciate Pascal for being here. In the top one, you can see folks that either work here or send their kids here. It's unequivocal. Ask for the big number. Let's do it. This is a common good for our community. It's a no-brainer, like someone said earlier today. Now for the community folks, we've only had 60 people out of the 360 or so respond to the survey that are just straight community members without kids in the district. And it's way more mixed. It's less than 440 to Rachel's point for some, and the next people are like more than 500. So it kind of depends on who you are, but it's not as united as the staff and parent input. And I think paying attention to that is important because we have the total number of folks in that staff and parent is about 3,000, and the other total that we're not hearing from is 15,000. So anyone listening in, the survey is on our website. If you go to our website, rossvalleyschools.org, you're gonna have an annoying pop-up that tells you about this meeting, and in that pop-up, there's a survey link. Please fill that out. We want to hear from you. Because I think that's how we thread the needle, is finding this difference between what our need is. Because my articulation of the need is, let's expand programs to make our schools even better and increase it by $750. And to Rachel's point, I don't think that will pass at all. So where between that number and a straight renewal gets us to where we can give meaningful raises to our teachers, maintain our student programs, and not come back to the community in 3 years.
And
But
I wonder,
I respect, Rachel, I respect your experience with parcel text, I really do, and I take that to heart what you said. But I'm looking at the percentage that we failed in getting this passed, a small percentage. And I do agree with Anna that it was people that didn't vote. And we had a complex LSAT question on how you were gonna be taxed on your parcel, right? And people still voted more favorably in the 60-something percentile to get this through. This is a flat tax we're asking for. It's a renewal of a parcel tax they've been paying already. We gotta increase it. Because we have to keep up with the rate of inflation and our expenses. I mean,
How would you feel at 540? My only concern is we pulled at 540. It's what people have been thinking, if anybody's paying any attention, or they could say, well, you pulled at 540 for a reason, and then you voted on 600, so you went over and above, but you didn't pull there, so how do you know the 600 or what? So I'm just asking how, because I'm at the threading of the needle of okay, we pulled at 540, there was no difference between 540 and 440 statistically speaking.
Right.
So to me, that says absolutely, there's no difference, and at least, to go there. And to listen to Rachel, which I also respect your vast experience in this, and feeling okay, what are the things that are gonna come at us, or the counter the negatives on that other slide. And so
talking about 600, I'm thinking automatically of cost, and who was like, oh, Golden Cafeteria when TAM did their Measure A. And honestly, if you look at Measure A and what they were asking for, they needed all that money. But they got hammered for it. They asked for what they needed.
But they said they were doing a cafeteria. That's
But the way they spun it was not, but I'm just, it wasn't as easy for the community to understand. I get that. But what I'm saying is if we ask for what we need, it doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna get it. And they had to come down 40% on their ask to get it to pass in the second go around. And so I don't want us to sit here and have to put all this energy into a second election to have it fail, to have to do a third to get the money we absolutely need.
yeah, but by the time we're there, we are not even, we may be talking about just, like I said, the fingernails kind of thing, because a lot of what I heard, I really heard you do not want to go into receivership. We do, that's absolute, but if we have to go out a third time, we could be talking about
just the Save Our Schools part of it, not the anything
But I think
else.
we're talking about saving our schools now at the 540.
But we're also talking about giving salary increases and
Totally,
we're
and
not
that's part
cutting,
of
we're
saving.
not
That's part of
cutting.
saving our schools. Like that's how dire it is. Like that's part of saving our schools. So, I think it's that messaging around the community, where maybe Measure E was more like pay our teachers more. We love our teachers. Pay our teachers more. It wasn't as like, well, okay, sure, I agree with that, but it's nice to have, right? They have summers off. I don't have summers off, right? Okay, they got it pretty good. Right? Talk to non-teachers, right? People are like, yeah, teachers have it pretty good. So we have to message the community aspect, right? The save our schools. Here's how it's going to affect us as a community, and not just a single body. This is why we want to increase.
Remind me
Yeah.
why we didn't poll at 750. There was a reason. There was a good reason.
So the reason, let me show you.
You got a reason to that.
So based on, I mean, if we go back here, based on the parcel tax town halls and the parcel tax working group, we were kind of setting a target for about $1,200, which gets us close to the Measure E increase. That means about a $458 increase from our current parcel tax. So then we polled a little less than that and a little more than that, and that was kind of the number. And I think the question around the need, it's complex. It really depends. The need to continue to improve our district, then it's 750. Is the need to just maintain, then it's 600. Is the need to get the thing passed, then it might be lower than that. So I think that the need just depends on what angle you're looking at the need from.
But if we just say, okay, we just want to get this passed, you're staring down another cliff. And I mean, I can run the numbers here on an Excel spreadsheet and get it out to you in 2 minutes and show you.
But we're
that
not
with a rate of
receivershiping,
inflation. No, we're not there, but we're not able to retain the quality of teachers that we want to retain.
Our enrollment will go
We can't
down.
provide the raises that we want to provide. We can't. There's we're just
at the 440.
frogs in the hot water.
Yeah, I fear
at the 440.
I fear families will leave to go to other schools.
I would.
Yeah, I think that if we do the bare minimum, that's not why people move here.
No.
And a lot of people have the means to send their kids to private schools, and that does not serve our community.
It's a hell of a lot more than $540.
But it's also the 15,000 people that we don't hear from. That's the risk. And again, the echo chamber is great to some aspect, right? But then you get on Nextdoor, you get on social, and other people aren't as vocal if they're against it.
Well, and I've had seniors that I know in my community who are, and the people who are not quite 65 yet, who have been asking me like, how much is it going to be? And they're like, they generally support these, but they were like a little bit like taken aback when I told them 440, 490, 540. They were like, it's a lot, and they're like, we've always supported them in the past, but it made them pause like immediately, and they were kind of embarrassed to tell me and say it, because they want to support schools and they always have, but that was enough to make them pause. And for me, I'm like, how many people are going to pause? And yes, I know we need the money, and I know that we need 600 or 750. I'd rather have 750, but
I think that's where the campaign strategy comes in, like those talking points of the average of the other schools, what
I think
theirs are.
sometimes there's confusion about parcel taxes and bonds and an increase of, let's say, 540. Some people might think that that's per $100,000 of assessed value, or they think it's per month, or whatever they think it is. It is a year. It's over the course of a year. So $600 is $50 a month. And for some people in their budget, that's a lot, and that's hard to pull off. And for other people, it's like water under the bridge. So I think this is part of why this is difficult. We have a diverse community. That's a beautiful thing. We want that. And we got to thread the needle between the families that wouldn't blink at a $750 increase and those that any increase is too much.
Well, and there was confusion in the Measure E about that it was in addition, right, to the current parcel tax. And we heard that loud and clear. A lot of people were like, oh my God, I don't want 55 cents a square foot plus what I'm already paying. And that's not what it was, but a lot of people were confused by that. And so we will not make, with our communication, our talking points, like, it'll be very clear what it will be.
$600 is the addition, isn't it? Equates to $50 a month.
Yep.
Okay.
The addition, yeah.
And that's the whole like latte factor. You've heard that a million times. Oh, if you don't buy a latte every day at Starbucks, you can afford to donate to our cause. And, people are like, oh, I spend a lot on a latte. $50 a month. To some people I know would they feel it. I'm not going to sit up here on a throne and think that. But
it's like the millennials and the avocado toast thing, buying a house. Okay, so I have a suggestion here for us as a board. Okay, so we're giving direction. We're not voting on anything today.
Right.
So we have another board meeting February 11th where people can come, we can get feedback in the interim. There's the open survey. What I'm suggesting is that we give direction to look at maybe $2, $3, like 3 total increase amounts to give him to look at. We need to figure out the term and the inflation rate now.
I don't think we can.
And then, just to give direction, because then they needs to go to like an attorney to like come up with the resolution language.
Right,
And then we can bring up maybe options and we can vote on the different option at the next meeting.
I might
How
narrow
many
it down
options?
to 2 because we have
Two.
to vote.
Okay.
We have to vote at the next meeting, so I
Right.
might narrow it down to just 2, not 3, just to.
Or
just because we can't not vote. There's not an option to not vote at the next time this comes up, is what I'm
Yeah,
understanding.
we're gonna vote. We're gonna vote it on February 11th, and I appreciate Rachel. The reason we did 2 meetings instead of just 1 public hearing is to allow this to get into the community.
Yeah.
Have people talk, fill out the survey, come to the next meeting to give us more feedback. So it might feel like it's the final countdown tonight, but we still have a few weeks. I think I can bring 2 different resolutions, and we can vote on the 2 different resolutions if there's like something if you guys are all set on everything except the increase, that would be relatively easy for me to do.
So it sounds like it's what I'm hearing is we are coalesced around flat with a dollar amount increase, no per square footage, 3% inflation rate.
10 years?
10 years.
Kind of go with 10 years.
10,
The
yeah.
whole
10
So,
years.
10.
10
Next.
done. 10 years.
on the treadmill of every 8 years of a lot.
10 years. Yeah. I haven't heard anybody object to having community oversight integrated in it. Seems
No.
like an appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
So really the only variable
amounts.
here is 2 numbers, and what I'm hearing is it's 540 or 600. Or
Well-
for 440.
I mean,
I don't know.
It could be that part open, I guess, maybe?
I would feel more comfortable
With economic
noodling a
numbers.
bit more tonight to know how we're gonna go in that. I
And
don't
maybe
know.
if
Yeah,
there's
I would
people that
that
are
have-
listening,
Yes.
that are
exactly.
here, that can go out and ask all of their
Yeah.
neighbors.
Send us emails. Give us the number. What is the number that everybody out there?
Non-echo chamber people.
What is gonna pass?
Let me-
What do you want?
Let me give a couple quick other pieces here.
Quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
We could make a modification to the number on the day of, even if it's not in one of the two ones you come to us with, right?
Probably. I'll talk to our lawyers
Okay.
about it.
Yeah, the more information really you could give us about this number, then this.
Yep.
This number, then yeah.
So let me go back here. I just noticed that my numbers on the right side are flipped. So the 440 actually generates 2.9 million. 490 is
Right,
correct,
right,
and the
right.
540 actually generates 3.6 million. So I'll fix that,
Okay.
and I apologize for that mistake. Measure E generated $3 million. So just contextually, Measure E didn't pass. So we came back. A lot of the feedback was around structure and less about the increase. So that's why I think there's room for debate on the increase. Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers will probably come out actively against us if it's more than the $3 million we asked for in Measure E. However, I had a conversation today with Mimi Willard, and she said she would endorse this measure if we asked for 10 to 20% more than we have right now. So that would be on 20%. So on the high end, it would be $149 increase.
not even the $440.
$149 increase.
So what I'm hearing is that basically we can bank on the fact that they are not going to come out and support.
In addition to that, she also mentioned that they will be doing an active tax tsunami campaign. So even if they endorsed, they're still gonna do the tax tsunami thing, so it's kind of. And she also mentioned too, and I think this is important to note, I think this is really important to note, that the focus will be Fairfax, because she believes, as a Kentfield resident, that she can move Fairfax voters easier than Mill Valley, easier than Santa Fe, easier than anywhere else.
Easier than her own hometown of Kentfield, which is raising taxes.
Exactly, so I just think that I think we have a lot of debate around how do we get Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers on board, and I'm 100% wanting them to be on board. But if their top end ask is an increase of $149 and they're still gonna do the tax tsunami thing, I think that is it's unfortunate.
I think we should listen to our community is who I think we should listen to.
Yes.
And I think that's
who we
I wanna
need to-
hear from Fairfax. I mean, I know San Anselmo's in the house and San Anselmo will give us feedback, and more folks that have filled out the survey are from San Anselmo. So like the Fairfax non-RVSD folks, between now and February 11th, I wanna hear from you. Call me, let's go get coffee, let's chat, send an email to the board. We need to hear from you.
The other thing to me that points to in terms of messaging is it's a get out. There are gonna be people who are against taxes, period. And I think that's what this is speaking to, is like, let me rally up the people who are gonna resonate with no more taxes ever, anywhere, anytime. We shouldn't waste time convincing them. We should then focus on get out the vote and say, hey, there's this campaign to try and get the no taxes ever, anytime, anywhere. And the way that we're gonna deal with that is not by convincing those people, it's by overwhelming them with the rest of the reasonable folks in the world and get out the vote and overwhelm them with that voice and just don't worry about even having to convince people.
Right,
or
everybody
listen
in
to
this
that.
room, like nobody wants to pay more, but we know what it's going, like there's nothing more important.
And at least we
than our
know now,
kids.
so we can move forward with that as a.
Yeah.
I think it was nice for me to hear, because over the course of the last few months, I've pushed really hard, because Costa said it needs to be meaningfully less, and I didn't know what that means. So I want to thank the cost board for putting a number on the table, because I asked for it and they talked about it last night, and now I have a number on the table, and the delta is just so far off, and knowing that they're going to do the tax tsunami thing anyways, so it's like to move to get there, yes, and then still have the tax tsunami, it just makes it less relevant.
Right, that's very helpful.
I just feel like my first role is a fiduciary responsibility to this district. And if I am guided by the tolerance levels of an outside interest that doesn't want us to do anything that would even move the needle on our fiscal obligations, I'm failing. I'm failing, personally, and I can't sit here and do that. To even consider a $149 increase with a straight face, I won't come back. I can't do that to my community. I can't do that to my kids, other people's kids. So I think we need to really, you're right, Tyler, listen to our community and also listen to the reason why we're here, and that is we have a fiscal responsibility to run these schools the way that they're supposed to be run. And I think the amount of money that we consider has to really rely on whether we get to that goal or not.
And our community has said, with Measure E, it's 60, almost 4%, yes, to the $3 million increase. And these increases between 2.9 and 3.6, we basically got even better results in the polling at 64 to 67%. So we're there and we're listening, and I'm really happy we're doing 2 meetings this year because it gives this time to breathe a little bit and get more input between now and the 11th.
I mean, I really want to thank everybody who attended the town halls, the parcel tax working group, all of the work you've done, Tyler. I mean, it gives us so much more information than I think we had last time. And that information, I mean, we didn't have this much involvement before, and it's huge.
Okay. So can you guys give me a range that you want me to cut? I'm hearing June, flat tax, 3%, 10 years, community oversight, obviously the same opt-outs and the no money for admin or pensions. But what's the kind of range you want me to consider? Do you want to broaden it? Do you want to narrow it?
I mean,
I was hearing 600 up here.
Yeah, I've heard 600.
But to your point, that's that's what we want, but
I know.
That-
I know, but we have 2 weeks for people to fill out a survey, to reach out to us.
again, even with 600, we still are paying more for our sewers. I'm not a mathematician, so you might want to double
No,
check
it's
my
12.
math.
It'd be 1242.
But with their escalating, it's still more.
Do you have any
13.
how are you feeling about passing likelihood and
It's
the
all about we
likelihood
have to
of
get to
don't?
yes. We have to get to yes in June. So 440 doesn't
No, 440
feel good,
I
but
meant 540 versus 600.
540 feels good. If that gets us to yes, I don't. I would ask pricing
I think
experts
the
on.
critique on the numbers that we polled on, the difference between 440 and 540, most people are like $100 a year.
Yeah.
I'm either yes to all of it or I'm no to all of it, or I'm annoyed that you asked me 3 times and now I'm no. So I think having a broader delta, something that's like almost a surefire yes, and our ask for debate at the next meeting could be helpful. So something closer to the bottom. I think if we did 540 and 600, it's like
No, they're too close.
it's too close.
Agreed.
So if you want 600 at the top end, I think something different at the.
I just don't know that, well, Rich, I would like to hear more from you. I mean, I'm hearing from this side over here, at least the 5, I mean, I'm not hearing a whole lot of support for the 440, 490, that it's like a 540 or above, but I also am totally appreciating and wrestling with it's got to pass. But then I wrestle with, well, it'll pass at 540 just as much as it'll pass at 440. So
I would be more inclined to look at 440 and 600 because it's a bigger delta. And I think it gives people a really good idea of like what we actually need to stay where we are and like what we can scrape by with. Like it's just like, I mean, we're still gonna have to do cuts probably at 440. So it gives people a little bit like, hey, what are you gonna choose for our community? Are you gonna choose some cuts and like a slight increase, or are you gonna choose like what we actually need to sustain what we're at now? I mean, I'd rather have a bigger delta than like 500 and 600. Like,
So like save our schools, but not really, or
Right,
like save our schools.
Our teachers will still leave and we'll still cut programs, but at least we won't have to go into receivership. Like, that's not great.
But it's again, it's
but
about
also
messaging,
we
right?
have
It's
to get
But
yes.
so I think this is the call to action. We have between now and February 11th, everyone in this room, everyone that was in this room, everyone that's listening, everyone that goes to our website, fill out the survey.
Yes, give us a number.
And send the survey to 10 people you know to get them to fill it out. Especially if they are 55 to 65 and live in Fairfax. Like I want to hear from them. So like
But the
that's
survey
call to action.
has 440, 490, 540.
And a lot of people say less than that
Okay,
or
great.
more than that.
Okay, good enough.
Or they've been putting in all kinds of stuff.
I also encourage emails that you don't have to write a lot. Just send me an email with a number and that's it. Like, really, truly, like I don't want to take up any more of people's time than they have. But I would love to hear from people about a number. So meeting that.
Okay, so I'm hearing a 440 to 600 delta. Is that
I think that's good because then you can give us what those two numbers will provide.
I mean, we could do that. I can't, in conscience, vote for a 440 if it's going to be still cutting and not paying increases. It just seems to me like that's just not a. I can't go out and knock on doors and ask, hey, can you increase your parcel tax so we can still make cuts and not pay any raises to
Yeah.
our teachers? It's just so that we.
So I think the difference between the 600 and the 440 is taking two dials and dialing up or down how much we negotiate with the unions and dialing up or down the cuts, right? And if it's 600, we can kind of get closer to the top, see that dark black line?
Yeah.
We can get closer to that number in negotiations, but it still puts us,
we're still in there.
Towards the top of the bottom quartile, right? And it means we're probably not making any cuts at 600. And then if we're at 440, we might jump Larkspur, Corte Madera, maybe Miller Creek, but we're not going to jump Kentfield, and we're going to probably make a few cuts. That's kind of the delta. I know a lot of people want me to put a number on the table for what we're going to negotiate with the union. I just can't at this point. But in my conversations with union leadership, we would love to do a multi-year deal, somewhere between a 2 and 3 year deal that helps create some stability so we can start talking about the amazing teaching and learning, the implementation of our new EL program, the improvements we're making to special ed. Like, that's the stuff that we care about, not, no offense, Chris. The budget is not why we're all here.
Yeah.
So if we give you that direction, 440 or 600, but then we're like, well, no, maybe we should just vote for 540. How do we do that on February 11th? Or is it?
You're saying it's not
or are we just
set in
choose?
stone. We can.
I'll talk to our lawyers because in the last round, I had to bring a resolution that was like a complete resolution, and we voted on it that day. And I think that's part of the mistake we made is we had one meeting, we had the public hearing, we got feedback, but we'd already voted, and it was like we couldn't honor the feedback that we had heard. This time we have time to honor the feedback, and we've got plenty of time to get more feedback. So I'll see what our lawyer can do, and I might be able to just have, as a board attachment, 2 or 3 different resolutions, or you all can vote for the resolution with this number in it. I'll see what we can do around that.
Fill in the blank number.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, there's no motion or vote today, so I just
emotion.
Yeah. I want to thank the board, and I also want to thank the community members that are still here. Anyone that made a comment tonight, anyone that wrote the board, anyone that filled out that survey. I've read all 350 responses. We heard every voice today. We've read all the emails that have been sent in. This is what democracy looks like in action. So please help get more feedback, because it's the grassroots piece. Like, the average Fairfax resident's not listening tonight. Like, help us get to those folks so we can hear them and honor their feedback in the democratic process to get something that's going to pass in June.
Alright. So with that, I'll move on to adjourning our meeting. It is 9:33 and I'm going to adjourn our meeting. Thank you all.